Chapter 662. Gu Yundong's treatment. Today is supposed to be a break. It's nothing serious, someone said. Besides, we're classmates with your father. He helped us last time. It's only right for us to help him this time. Gu Yundong lowered her eyes. After a while, she looked up. Since you've said so, it's hard to reject your kindness. Thank you for your help. Then, she decisively took out a large stack of paper from the drawer, as well as more than 20 pens, and placed them neatly on the table. There aren't enough tables here. I've already gotten someone to borrow them. When the time comes, everyone make do. Everyone was speechless. Is this how you thank us? Indeed. Not long after, Shuang had already instructed someone to bring over a few large desks. In the study, in the central room, even in the dining hall, the desks were set up. There were many scholars living nearby, so it was easy to borrow desks. Even if there was no desk, there were big round tables. Even if some people were unwilling, when they heard that the 20-odd people who came to the Gu family today were all students from the Tianhai Academy, they immediately helped move the tables without a word. It wasn't until they were all set up that the 20 or so students reacted. It seemed like they had been tricked, especially the few people who followed Qing. They had seen how powerful Miss Gu was last time and should have known her personality long ago. With her intelligence, what big problem could make her frown? She had set up a trap for them. Gu Yundong arranged seats for them and immediately relaxed. She clapped her hands and whispered to Lu Wei, "Thank you. I did well, didn't I?" Lu Wei was very pleased with himself. Then, he felt that something was wrong. Luan, who was standing not far away, sighed. "Young master, did you forget that you came to settle scores with Miss Gu? Previously, when you saw Aunt Ku, you swore that you'd settle the scores. Why didn't you count the scores and help her for nothing?" Because there were so many people in the family, Gu Yundong did not ask them for help for nothing. After all, they were all her father's classmates, so she had to build a good relationship with them. Therefore, she personally went to the market to pick fresh fruits and vegetables and returned with chicken, duck, and fish. As soon as she entered, she prepared a few plates of fruits and asked Shuang to send them over. She even poured white sugar water for them and even made a bowl of double-skim milk for each of them. These were foods that the children highly recommended. Seeing the white and tender double-skim milk, these students were stunned. They had never eaten it before. What was this? Even Lu Wei had never eaten it before, but it was obvious that it was good stuff. Didn't they see that Yunke was already digging and eating with a spoon? When the smooth and tender thing entered their mouths, everyone could not help but widen their eyes. Delicious! Zhou could not help but ask. "Miss Gu, could it be that this will be sold in the shop?" Gu Yundong shook his head. "This is not for sale. It's not easy to keep. Our shop sells things that can be preserved for a period of time." Zhou eyes lit up. Then, before he could finish speaking, Lu Wei immediately interrupted him loudly. "Sell me the recipe. Sell me the recipe. They'll sell it in Jinxiu restaurant." Zhou turned to look at him angrily. This was too unethical. He was the one who thought of it first. Gu Yundong laughed. "All right, they'll tell you how to make it later." Lu Wei immediately became happy. His father even said that he was brainless. Just wait. When he got this recipe and sold it in the restaurant later, it would definitely become very popular and his business would rise to another level. The other students couldn't wait to eat. They were all students and didn't really care about doing business. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 664. Lu Wei's marriage. Lu Wei was stunned and felt a little guilty. He took a small step back. "Why? You've been to the Lu family?" "Yeah, and then I heard something." Lu Wei turned around and left. "I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first." However, just as he turned around, he was pulled back by Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong was curious. "What did you hear?" She really thought that Lu Wei had rushed over in such a rage because they had not told him about coming to the prefectural city. So it wasn't. Shao Qingyuan glanced at Lu Wei and said, "Old Master Lu was arranging a wife for Lu Wei. He was unwilling, so he fled to the prefectural city." Gu Yundong was stunned, and looked at Lu Wei in surprise. Lu Wei was 18 years old this year, 2 years younger than Shao Qingyuan. Usually, in this era, 15 or 16-year-olds should get married. Didn't you see that Tao Xing and Peng Zhongfei, who were about the same age as him, already had many wives and concubines? Lu Wei's family background was good, and it wasn't like he couldn't afford a wife. His situation was also different from Shao Qingyuan's, so why was he unwilling? Could it be that he liked men? Gu Yundong's imagination started to run wild. He looked at Lu Wei warily. This guy liked to stick to Shao Qingyuan. Could it be that he had other thoughts? Lu Wei didn't notice the look in her eyes. He just said with a long face, "You don't understand my pain at all." "What pain?" "My father thinks that I'm too jumpy and unruly, so he wants to find a fierce woman to control me." Lu Wei simply wanted to die. "Do you think he's my biological father? How can he harm his son like this? Is there anyone like him?" Gu Yundong blinked. Well, old Master Liu's idea was indeed very strange. However, what she did not know was that she was the one who gave old Master Liu such a thought. Lu Wei was especially mischievous when he was young. When he grew up, he didn't get any better. A few years ago, when he reached the age of marriage, his family had arranged many marriages for him. In the end, he sabotaged them all. Old Master Liu was so angry that he did not want to care about his son. Later, when he met Gu Yundong, he watched helplessly as his son obediently listened to Gu Yundong. He suddenly had a plan and felt that he had finally found a woman who could subdue his son. At that time, old Master Liu even wanted Lu Wei to marry Gu Yundong. Unfortunately, she had Shao Qingyuan by her side, and he was watching her too closely. So he could only look for other people, but there were too few girls like Gu Yundong. Those who were worthy of his family background were too dignified and not fierce enough. For those who were fierce enough, their family background was not good enough. Gu Yundong was poor at first, but she was capable. If she had a strong temper and was not capable and did not have a family background, old Master Liu would still feel that he had wronged his son. Hence, after half a year, he finally found one. However, his son didn't cooperate and actually ran away. Old Master Liu was so angry that he almost fell sick. Gu Yundong was enlightened after hearing this. She sympathized with Lu Wei. In ancient times, parents had always been in charge of marriage. For someone like Lu Wei, it was already good enough that his father didn't use him for business alliance. In short, he'll hide in the prefectural city for now. He'll return after this storm passes. Besides, aren't you opening in a few days? He'll help you. After saying that, Lu Wei quickly threw this matter to the back of his mind and went to work happily. Luan watched from the beginning to the end and complained in his heart, "Young master, didn't you say that you would settle scores with him? Can you succeed once? This is too tragic. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 664. Lu Wei's marriage. Lu Wei was stunned and felt a little guilty. He took a small step back. "Why? You've been to the Lu family?" "Yeah. And then I heard something." Lu Wei turned around and left. "I still have something to do. We'll take my leave first." However, just as he turned around, he was pulled back by Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong was curious. "What did you hear?" She really thought that Lu Wei had rushed over in such a rage because they had not told him about coming to the prefectural city. So it wasn't. Shao Qingyuan glanced at Lu Wei and said, "Old Master Liu was arranging a wife for Lu Wei. He was unwilling, so he fled to the prefectural city." Gu Yundong was stunned and looked at Lu Wei in surprise. Lu Wei was 18 years old this year, 2 years younger than Shao Qingyuan. Usually, in this era, 15 or 16-year-olds should get married. Didn't you see that Tao Xing and Peng Zhongfei, who were about the same age as him, already had many wives and concubines? Lu Wei's family background was good, and it wasn't like he couldn't afford a wife. His situation was also different from Shao Qingyuan's, so why was he unwilling? Could it be that he liked men? Gu Yundong's imagination started to run wild. He looked at Lu Wei warily. This guy liked to stick to Shao Qingyuan. Could it be that he had other thoughts? Lu Wei didn't notice the look in her eyes. He just said with a long face, You don't understand my pain at all. What pain? My father thinks that I'm too jumpy and unruly, so he wants to find a fierce woman to control me. Lu Wei simply wanted to die. Do you think he's my biological father? How can he harm his son like this? Is there anyone like him? Gu Yundong blinked. Well, old Master Liu's idea was indeed very strange. However, what she did not know was that she was the one who gave old Master Liu such a thought. Lu Wei was especially mischievous when he was young. When he grew up, he didn't get any better. A few years ago, when he reached the age of marriage, his family had arranged many marriages for him. In the end, he sabotaged them all. Old Master Liu was so angry that he did not want to care about his son. Later, when he met Gu Yundong, he watched helplessly as his son obediently listened to Gu Yundong. He suddenly had a plan and felt that he had finally found a woman who could subdue his son. At that time, old Master Liu even wanted Lu Wei to marry Gu Yundong. Unfortunately, she had Shao Qingyuan by her side, and he was watching her too closely. So he could only look for other people, but there were too few girls like Gu Yundong. Those who were worthy of his family background were too dignified and not fierce enough. For those who were fierce enough, their family background was not good enough. Gu Yundong was poor at first, but she was capable. If she had a strong temper and was not capable and did not have a family background, old Master Liu would still feel that he had wronged his son. Hence, after half a year, he finally found one. However, his son didn't cooperate and actually ran away. Old Master Liu was so angry that he almost fell sick. Gu Yundong was enlightened after hearing this. She sympathized with Lu Wei. In ancient times, parents had always been in charge of marriage. For someone like Lu Wei, it was already good enough that his father didn't use him for business alliance. In short, he'll hide in the prefectural city for now. He'll return after this storm passes. Besides, aren't you opening in a few days? He'll help you. After saying that, Lu Wei quickly threw this matter to the back of his mind and went to work happily. Luan watched from the beginning to the end and complained in his heart, "Young master, didn't you say that you would settle scores with him? Can you succeed once? This is too tragic. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 666. Opening on the 8th day of the 9th month, the weather was clear. It was suitable to marry, enter the house, and open for business. Early in the morning, the Gu family tidied themselves up in high spirits. Other than Gu Dajiang, who was still going to the academy, everyone else went to Gus' shop on Dahui Road. At the same time, many people in the city rubbed their palms together and prepared. The flyers clearly stated that if they spent a tael of silver, they could receive a bag of dried fruits for free. One tael of silver was not a lot to many people in the prefectural city. Even if they did not have it, some smart people wanted to pool it together with others. If each of them bought a little, they would be able to get a bag of dried fruits. Among them was Madame's son, the neighbor of the Su family. Madame's son also happened to receive a flyer 2 days ago. After getting someone to help read the words on it, she was immediately interested. She had long heard about this canned food. She heard that it was very delicious. The supply in Jinxiu restaurant was not enough, and the price was especially expensive. It was not easy to buy. Madame's son did not have the connections to buy it with money, but there were canned food sold in other shops. It was just not authentic and was cheap. She had bought it and eaten it. The taste was simply indescribable. It had a strange taste. When she heard that the Gu family shop was selling the canned food from Jinxiu restaurant, she had an idea. Coincidentally, her son had given her his salary a few days ago. She was not very tight on money. Therefore, early this morning, she put on her new clothes and went out to look for the other 2 neighbors. Unexpectedly, the moment she opened the courtyard door, the Su family next door also opened. Su Changshan was also wearing brand new clothes and was standing at the door talking to Mother Su. "Mother, I might be back late tonight. You and little sister can eat first. You don't have to wait for me." Mother Su nodded. "I know. Hurry up and go. Don't delay your work." Madame's son giggled when she heard that. "Yo, you're going to work in a small shop, and you even specially made new clothes. Look at how capable you are." Mother Su and Su Changshan ignored her. Madam's son snorted and left. Only then did Su Changshun say, "Mother, when I earn money, well, buy a bigger courtyard and not be neighbors with her." "All right, Mother will wait." Mother Su wiped the corners of her eyes and said with relief. Not only did she not want to be neighbors with Madam's son, but she also did not want to be neighbors with those who had mocked her son and avoided her family like snakes and scorpions. Su Changshun left quickly. Gus was about to open for business today. He was completely relieved. When he arrived at the shop, Gu Yundong and the others had just arrived. When they saw Su Changshun, they nodded slightly. "Come in." The shelves in the shop were already filled with things. There were canned white sugar fruits, dried fruits, and jam from the fruit shop. There were also all kinds of exquisite sweets. There was a dazzling array of things. As soon as Su Changshun entered, he rolled up his sleeves and got busy. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong waved her hand. "There's no hurry. Come with me." On the first day, besides Zheng Gang, Su Changshun, and Shu, people including Zhou, Chen Jinbao, Tong Ping, Shui Rong, Lu Sheng, and even Madame Niu, Lu Hongxiu, and Tong Shuitao had to help receive the guests. Feng Daneng and the others had wanted to help, but they were not hired workers. Moreover, she had enough manpower, so Gu Yundong did not agree. She only said that they should rest in the backyard. If anyone asked about the renovation of the shop, she would bring them over. They followed Gu Yundong into the backyard and saw her get someone to bring out a large box from a room. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 667. Work clothes. Everyone was puzzled. Gu Yundong had already opened the box, and it was filled with many clothes. Gu Yundong took out a piece from inside and said, "The shop is opening today. In order to make it easier for the customers to find the shop assistants, everyone's clothes are the same. I asked a ready-made clothes shop to make this a few days ago. I only received it last night. Everyone, go to the house and change after taking it." The clothes in Gus' shop had always been the same. It was the same in the county city. At first, the clothes for Zhenggang and Zhuangzi were bought from a ready-made clothing store. Later on, Shun Sitian came. She was good at this and was fast. The clothes she designed were all good-looking. Gu Yundong asked Shun Sitian to help. Firstly, it was to take care of her business so that she could earn more money. Secondly, she could do better than in the ready-made clothing shop. She could satisfy all of Gu Yundong's requests. Until now, Zhenggang and Zhuangzi had 2 sets of clothes every season. The treatment was already very good. At the very least, Zhuangzi was very happy. Every time he was given new clothes, he was happy to clean the shop from top to bottom. Now that she was in the prefectural city, she naturally had to do the same. However, Shun Sitian was not around, so she could only get the ready-to-wear shop here to help make it. "Uncle Zheng, this is yours." Gu Yundong handed him the set of clothes. Zhenggang was already very calm. After all, he had accepted work clothes many times. However, with new clothes to wear, who wouldn't be happy? In the end, he was still happy. However, Su Changshun was not calm. When his name was called, he was in a daze. It was only when he received the clothes that he looked up in shock. The shop still cared about the shop assistant's clothes? This was too good. Not only was the salary high, but there was also free clothes. He looked at the clothes he was wearing and touched the clothes in his arms. He realized that the clothes given by the boss seemed to be made of better material. There were not only clothes for men, but also those for women. However, they were different. The women's were better looking and their colors were brighter. The people who received the clothes were overjoyed. Seeing that it was getting late, they quickly turned around and went into the house to change. When they came out, they looked brand new. Other than the fact that Zhenggang's clothes were different, the shop assistant's clothes were all the same. There was a word "gu" on their arms, but this word could be removed. If the clothes were old and they wanted to give them to others to wear, they could just remove the word. "All right, everyone has changed. We can start preparing now. The shop will open at 8 in the morning. There's still an hour left. Everyone prepare the tea and food. Don't miss it." After she finished speaking, everyone went to prepare. Not long after, Anku arrived. Gu Yundong had been looking at the time. Seeing that it was almost time, She quickly got someone to prepare firecrackers. Open now. When the time was up, she had a smile on her face as she waved her arm and shouted. As soon as the door opened, the shop assistants in uniform immediately stood on both sides. Shao Qingyuan ignited the firecrackers. Soon, crackling sounds sounded on the street and instantly spread far away. Zhou Dafu, who was sitting in the carriage, paused. He narrowed his eyes slightly and asked Steward Zhou, "Is it open?" Judging from the commotion, it should be open. Steward Zhou replied respectfully. "Don't worry, old master. I've already prepared everything." As he spoke, his expression was vicious. He blamed all the injuries he had suffered on Yundong and the others. Today, he was going to make sure that Gus could not continue operating. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 668. Waiting to cause trouble. How could Zhou Dafu not be furious? The first time he saw her, his son was thrown onto a horse and almost lost his life, and he had even been extorted for more than 1,000 taels of silver. The second time they met, he was pretending to be a good-natured person. Not only did he flee in fear, but he also had to deal with those local hooligans. Initially, he thought that Gus had some impressive backer. In the end, after checking, she was just a bumpkin from the countryside. She had just opened shop in the county city and was already extremely arrogant. She did not even know how to restrain herself when she came to the prefectural city. She was simply detestable and deserved to die. He gently knocked on the wall of the carriage and said to Feng, who was driving outside, "Hurry up." He didn't want to miss the fun. "Yes, master." Compared to Zhou Dafu and Steward Zhou's optimism, Feng looked worried. After some thought, he could not help but say, "Master, that young master and lady are both skilled. Those local hooligans only know how to talk. If they really attack, I'm afraid one person can beat them down." Before Zhou Dafu could reply, Steward Zhou sneered and said, "Don't worry, I've already prepared everything. Those local hooligans don't have much ability, but I found a few skilled escorts to hide among them. When the time comes, those escorts will keep the man and woman occupied, and the others will destroy their entire shop." Feng frowned and did not say anything else. He was just a guard, only responsible for protecting his master's safety. The master had asked Steward Zhou to take care of everything else. The carriage soon arrived at the alley not far from Gus. Feng stopped. Steward Zhou got down from the carriage and looked around. He had already seen the local hooligans hiding elsewhere. He nodded slightly at them. However, the local gang leader had mixed feelings at this moment. He originally thought that they were just going through the motions. Who knew that Steward Zhou would actually stuff a few tall and powerful experts into their place? This made the local hooligan not dare to be perfunctory. Even if he had to brace himself, he could only go up. But on second thought, with these experts around, what was there to be afraid of? He was not afraid. He could take revenge on the man and the two women. Steward Zhou whispered to Zhou Dafu, who was in the carriage, "Master, those local hooligans are also here. They're waiting for our orders. Or should we take action?" Zhou Dafu looked in the direction of Gus. Gus had already opened. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were standing outside. The firecrackers had just ended and there were already people walking in. He snorted softly. "Let's wait a little longer. The door has just opened. It'll be lively when there are more people later." "Understood." Steward Zhou nodded and looked in the direction of Gus. After a while, he muttered, "I didn't expect there to be so many people. Didn't they distribute the paintings on the street a couple of days ago? They only know how to do such fancy things. Look, most of the people are here for the free bag of dried fruits after paying a tael of silver. They're all commoners who are greedy for small benefits and don't have much money." Steward Zhou nodded in agreement. After all, those people were not dressed well, and all of them were timid and hesitant. But soon, he frowned and saw a familiar figure striding into Gus' shop. "Master, that person seems to be..." Zhou Dafu also saw it and immediately frowned. A moment later, he came to a realization. They're both from Fengkai County. They probably know each other. If you find any errors, ads pop up, Ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 669. The people of Anya residence are actually here. Yes, this Gus seems to be selling canned food. Canned food like those in Jinxiu restaurant. Steward Zhou nodded, feeling extremely unhappy. Zhou Dafu and Gu Yundong saw Lu Wei and the manager of Jinxiu restaurant. The manager was holding a gift box and congratulated Gu Yundong as soon as he entered. It's an auspicious day to open for business. Mississippi Gus place is indeed lively. Shuang came up to take the gift box and invited Lu Wei and the shopkeeper inside. Lu Wei waved his hand. You don't have to entertain me. I'm just here to help. Shuang ignored him and only served them sugar water. After a while, another carriage stopped outside and someone alighted from it. As soon as he entered, he greeted them with a smile. Boss Gu, your business is booming. Gu Yundong was stunned. Before she could react, she saw the manager of Jinxiu restaurant stand up and welcome him. So it's Old Master Zhou. Old Master Zhou? Gu Yundong suddenly thought of Zhuoguang. Welcome, Old Master Zhou. Please come in. Please forgive me for my lack of hospitality. Old Master Zhou laughed and said, Boss Gu, you're too polite. I've long heard from our Zhuoguang that Boss Gu is smart and capable. You opened such a huge shop in the prefectural city, and your business is the rare canned food and white sugar. Last time, that kid brought back a lot of good things from Boss Gu, and we were extremely greedy. Gu Yundong did not expect Old Master Zhou to be so straightforward. She immediately smiled. Old Master Zhou, you praise me so much that I'm embarrassed. You flatter me. These are just small things. Please don't laugh at me. You're being modest, aren't you? I've been looking forward to the opening of your shop for a long time, so I came over early in the morning. Later, you have to leave some canned food for me to bring back. Of course. Gu Yundong asked Shuang to bring him to sit in the backyard. She also kicked Lu Wei to the backyard to chat with him. Old Master Zhou asked the people behind him to bring the gifts over. Gu Yundong had just ordered someone to serve tea when two more carriages stopped outside. Gu Yundong still did not know him, but one of them looked very familiar. She could tell at a glance that he was the brother of the student surnamed Kai who had pretended to be Mountain Elder Qi in the Fate Hut the other day. They were too similar. As expected, that person introduced himself. He was Kai Yong's elder brother. The father of another student came with him. They looked like scholars, polite and elegant. Gu Yundong went forward and exchanged a few pleasantries before they were led to the backyard by Shao Qingyuan. Not long after, a few more people came in with gift boxes. In the carriage opposite Gus' shop, Zhou Dafu frowned slightly. Steward Zhou also had a bad feeling in his heart. Master, those people who are coming don't seem to be ordinary commoners. He knew the shopkeeper of Jinxiu restaurant, but he was not very familiar with Old Master Zhou and the others. But from the looks of it, he was probably not from an ordinary poor family. Zhou Dafu frowned slightly. Wait for another 15 minutes and get those to do it. For some reason, he felt uneasy. His heart was racing, as if something big was about to happen. Steward Zhou swallowed his saliva and was about to nod when he suddenly saw a familiar figure. His eyes widened. Master, that seems to be the steward of the Nye residence. Nye residence? Zhou Dafu suddenly looked in the direction he was pointing at and saw a carriage parked at the entrance of Gus. Chapter 670. The familiar Nye Shuang then. A person alighted from the carriage. Zhou Dafu was very familiar with that person. Wasn't he Steward Nye of the Nye residence? This steward was the one that Zhou Dafu could not get close to. At most, they could only come into contact with the junior stewards of the Nye family. Zhou Dafu couldn't stay calm anymore and got out of the carriage. Why is the steward of the Nye residence here? Steward Zhou shivered and tried his best to make up for it. With a trace of hope, he said, Perhaps they also like the canned food sold by Gus? Master, think about it. This canned food is so rare. The Nye family might also want a share of it. So, they came to pressure Gus? As soon as he finished speaking, the steward turned around and respectfully walked to a carriage at the back. He personally lifted the curtain. Soon, a girl who was only 14 or 15 years old came out. Who is that lady? Zhou Dafu asked. Steward Zhou swallowed his saliva. To be respected by that steward, I'm afraid she's the young lady of the Nye residence. Gu Yundong did not expect the eldest daughter of the Nye family to come personally. She had told Aunt Ku that it was enough as long as there was someone in charge. Unexpectedly, not only did the steward come, but this girl called Nye Shuang also appeared at the door of Gus. As soon as she arrived, she walked towards Gu Yundong, who was at the door. She held her arm as if they were close friends. You're Miss Gu, right? My brother told me about you, and Aunt Ku kept praising you. I wanted to see you for a long time, but I never had the chance. I couldn't go to Yongfu village when you were there. I finally meet you today. Aunt Ku glanced at her. All right, it's your first time meeting, and you're already pulling each other. Where are your manners? Although this is the first time we've met, we've been remote friends for a long time. I've long heard of Miss Gu. Aunt Ku tugged at her. All right, so be it. Don't stand at the door and block the customers. There's so many people. What if you bump into them? Nye Shuang stuck out her tongue. Aunt Ku pulled her inside, but she still turned to Gu Yundong indignantly and said, They'll talk to you later when you're not busy anymore. By the way, the food at your shop is delicious. We really like the gifts from the previous 2 times. My father originally planned to come personally to congratulate you on your opening today, but unfortunately, he's occupied with something. I'll come on behalf of him. My father asked me to thank you. Steward Zhou, who had quietly run to the door of Gus to ask about the specific situation, happened to hear these words. His face immediately looked as if he had been struck by lightning. Then, what did eldest Miss Nye say? Did she mean that Boss Gu had known the Nye family for a long time and was so familiar with them that they had sent each other gifts twice? Was old Master Nye planning to come personally for the opening of such a small shop? In the end, he could not come, so he sent eldest Miss and the steward over. Gus. Gus was so close to the Nye family. Steward Zhou was in a daze, but Gu Yundong shook her head and laughed as she watched Aunt Ku take Nye Shuang away. Before she could say a word, Nye Shuang had already finished speaking. However, Nye Shuang's personality was straightforward. There was also old Master Nye. Indeed, the more successful someone was, the more low-key and humble they would be. She had learned a lesson. Gu Yundong thought for a moment and called Lu Hongxiu over. Go to the kitchen in the backyard and take out the food box I placed in the cupboard. Offer Miss Nye a portion of the things inside. As she spoke, she handed Lu Hongxiu a key. Lu Hongxiu quickly responded and hurried to the back. Chapter 671. This is milk tea. There was indeed a cabinet in the kitchen. Lu Hongxiu didn't know that Miss had brought a food box with her when she left in the morning. She carefully took out the food box and removed the lid. There was a rather large ceramic pot inside. Lu Hongxiu was stunned for a moment. Just as she was about to open the door, she heard footsteps outside. In the next moment, her sister, Lu Hongxiao, appeared with second Mississippi. Gu Yunke ran to her and climbed up the stool. Her eyes lit up when she saw the ceramic pot. Sister Hongxiu, do you know what this is? Lu Hongxiu opened the box and saw water inside. No, it wasn't water. The color was a little turbid, like beige, but it was lighter. However, it emitted a strong, sweet fragrance that made Lu Hongxiu swallow her saliva. She looked at Gu Yunke, who seemed to know it very well, and asked with a smile, Does second Miss know what this is? Of course, this is milk tea. The little girl was very proud. Her chubby little hand took the porcelain spoon at the side and gently stirred it. When she picked it up again, there were a few brown beads in the spoon. This is delicious. The young lady put down the spoon and slid down from the stool. She took out a cup and handed it to Lu Hongxiu. Lu Hongxiu looked at the young lad's eager expression and knew that she really wanted to drink it. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Second Miss, if you want to drink it, you have to ask first Miss first. The little girl pouted. No, I don't want to drink it. Lu Hongxiu was puzzled. Lu Hongxiao explained. Second Miss drank it before she left and knew that it was called pearl milk tea. She was afraid that sister didn't know, so she came to tell her. Lu Hongxiu was stunned. She looked at the little girl warmly. Thank you, Second Mississippi. As she spoke, she carefully scooped out the milk tea. Then, she covered it again and placed it in the cabinet. She carried the milk tea out. Shuang was on the second floor. The backyard was filled with men, so it was inconvenient for a lady to come. The scenery on the second floor was good, and the view was great. Shuang liked it very much. However, she was alone at this moment. Other than the maidservant, there was no one to talk to. She could only look at the environment on the second floor. With one look, she realized that this place was actually different from the restaurants and tea houses she had seen in the past. There were a few tables on the second floor. They were not very big. Some were round, some were square, and some were rectangular. Then, there were a few small stools and small chairs. What was strange was that be it the stools or chairs, there were soft cushions on them. It was especially comfortable to sit on. There were 2 long chairs in the empty space. There were also soft cushions on them. She felt like she could lie on them and sleep. The table was white and looked refreshing. There were wooden carvings and some books on the cabinets on the left and right. Shuang thought that they were the boring 4 books, 5 classics, or female commandment. In the end, she took some out and flipped through them. Whoa, storybooks? Shuang's eyes instantly lit up. Heavens, what kind of godly place was this? She felt that she could stay here for the entire afternoon without moving. As long as she had a storybook, it was enough. Yes, there was also Go at the side. There was also a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone that she seemed to be able to write and draw with. Shuang was a little excited. Could she get a few friends to play chess and read books with her later? Just as she thought about it, Lu Hongxiu came up. She was carrying a tray with fruit, food, and a cup on it. Tea, supposedly? Miss Nya, my miss specially prepared this for you. This is the preserved fruits and canned food sold in the shop. There are also snacks. This is milk tea. Chapter 672. Very agile, as soon as she finished speaking, a small head appeared behind her and added pearl milk tea. Shuang was stunned. Before she could understand what the milk tea was, she was distracted by Gu Yunke. Looking at the tender little girl, her eyes lit up. You're little Yunke? Yeah. Shuang immediately stretched out her hand. So cute. Come over and let me hug you. She was a little like Aunt Ko. She could not resist children, especially since Aunt Ku and Yetzong had mentioned Gu Yunshu and Gu Yunke to her. She had wanted to meet them for a long time. Now that she saw her, the girl was even cuter than she had imagined. She immediately felt her heart melt. Little Yunke giggled and came out from behind Lu Hongxiu. She was immediately carried into Shuang's arms. Your family shop is opening today. Why are you here? There are so many people coming and going. What if they bump into you? The little girl shook her head. Don't be afraid. I'm very agile. They can't hit me. Agile. Shuang looked her up and down. The little girl was only 4 years old. She was chubby and her legs were short. She really could not see how she was agile. Lu Hongxiu put down her things and left. Only then did Shuang see Lu Hongxiu standing at the back. As soon as she looked puzzled, the little girl in her arms got off the ground and introduced her to her little playmate. Shuang was a little childish. She knew that this was a servant of the Gu family, but the feelings between children were very pure, so she also patted Lu Hongqiu's head very kindly. Lu Hongqiu's face immediately turned red, and she looked a little shy. Shuang couldn't help but laugh. He picked up the milk tea on the table and took a sip. Huh? She blinked and took another sip to make sure it wasn't an illusion. Her eyes widened, and she looked down at the contents of her teacup. What was this? She had never drunk it before. It didn't look like sugar water or fruit wine, but it was delicious and fragrant. Shuang could not help but pursed her lips again. Just as she was about to put the cup down, she heard a childish voice. Isn't it delicious? Shuang looked down and saw the little girl's short body standing by the table. Because she was small, her small hand was on the edge of the table as she stared at her with wide eyes. She immediately smiled. Do you want to drink it? The little girl's eyes were filled with desire. Just as Shuang thought that she wanted to drink it, she saw her shake her head decisively. No, why not? She clearly wanted to drink it. I drank it this morning. However, when she watched others drink it, it was equivalent to drinking it herself. Hence, The little girl urged her anxiously. Hurry up and drink it. My eldest sister made it. The round things are called pearls. They're edible. Try them. Shuang looked at her big, proud eyes, clearly revealing the meaning of, my elder sister is the best, and the food my elder sister makes is the most delicious on earth. There was a moment when she wanted to take her home and treat her as her younger sister. Shuang took a spoon and scooped a mouthful of pearls. They were actually soft and elastic, rolling around her mouth. What was this? How could there be such a magical thing? She took another sip of milk tea and realized that this thing was actually addictive. She drank one mouthful after another and couldn't stop at all. It was not until she had drunk more than half of the cup that she suddenly stopped. No, if she drank any more, she would finish it. If she finished it, it would be gone. All right, she could look for Yundong and buy it home. Chapter 673. Beaten up again, Shuang controlled her eyes from glancing at the milk tea. Then, she said to the young lady who was looking at her eagerly, waiting for her to praise the milk tea, Kiki, wait for me here first. He'll go look for your elder sister. He'll be back soon. As she spoke, she stood up and instructed the maidservant standing at the door. Take good care of the two children. Without waiting for the maidservant to respond, she went downstairs. Yundong was still welcoming the guests at the door. There were a lot of people today. She really did not expect her father's 20-odd classmates to be so influential. Almost every family had sent people over. Now, the courtyard behind her shop was almost full. The problem was that these people were actually very happy to gather together and talk. At the same time, they ate. Zhou and the others were also in a daze. Actually, the Zhou family was not the only one eyeing the Gu family's shop. Many people in the prefectural city knew that such a shop that specialized in selling canned food and white sugar was about to open. After all, the flyers were everywhere. Therefore, many people with some family background wanted to see what kind of background the Gu family had. If she didn't have any background, they could pressure her to hand over the recipe for the canned food. If she had some backing but wasn't very powerful, they could cooperate and let her supply the goods. It would be a win-win situation for everyone. However, from the looks of it, the Gu family clearly had the confidence to open a shop in the prefectural city and sell rare things like canned food and white sugar. Not to mention that the young master of Jinxiu restaurant had gone in. Even the young lady of the Nief family had come later. There was no doubt about the Nief family's status in the entire prefectural city. No one dared to challenge them. Therefore, the moment they saw the Nief family appear, more than half of them gave up. However, there was also a small group of people who were originally at odds with the Nief family. There were also people with a strong family background. They took a fancy to the sugar business and would not retreat so easily. Of course, this did not include the Zhou family. Zhou no longer had any intention of causing trouble. His expression was a little ugly and defeated. There was unwillingness and fear, but he still gave a look and asked Steward Zhou, who was secretly hiding outside Gus' shop, to hurry back. Steward Zhou's legs were a little weak now, and he felt like a disaster was imminent. As expected, when he returned to the carriage, he was kicked hard by Zhou. Didn't you say that Gus has no background or backing? Didn't you say that this family is just a bumpkin from the countryside? Didn't you say that if everything is handed over to you, you can definitely stop their shop from opening? Look, this is called no backing, right? Damn you. He kicked Steward Zhou again. Fortunately, I was careful and didn't let those local hooligans find trouble immediately. Otherwise, I would be the one dead now. You useless thing, why aren't you calling those people back? Yes, old master. Steward Zhou was angry, but did not dare to say anything. He could only lower his head and quickly agree. Unexpectedly, just as he turned around to leave, he saw another carriage parked at the entrance of the Gu family's shop. Steward Zhou's pupils constricted when he saw the sign on the carriage. Ignoring the fact that Zhou was angry, he hurriedly called out, "Master, look. What are you looking at? What else is there to see? Let me tell you." As he spoke, he followed Steward Zhou's finger and looked over. In the next moment, his voice seemed to be blocked, and he could not say a word. Chapter 674. Madame Dai is here. It wasn't just Zhou, Dafu, and the others. The surrounding people who were watching the commotion, and even those who were secretly thinking about it, were all shocked when they recognized the symbol of the carriage. Their eyes widened. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Gus. Before Yundong could look at the symbol, she was distracted by a person sitting in front of the carriage. She had seen this person before. Wasn't this the soldier who provided her with clues when she planned to earn money by drawing images after fleeing to the Shuang prefecture? Yundong still remembered his words. That bandit killed my good brother who fought alongside me. I dream of him every night. I know very well how many moles there were on his face. She thought that they would never meet again, but he actually came. The soldier strode towards her. Miss Gu, we meet again. He almost didn't dare to recognize her. The last time they met, this girl was sloppy, and he couldn't tell if she was a woman. Now that they met again, the difference was like heaven and earth. She was graceful and beautiful, making people's eyes light up. However, he did not stare at her. Soon, he lowered his voice and said softly, Lady Gu, Madame Dai and young Master Dai are here. Dai? Gu Yundong's pupils constricted. She exchanged glances with Shao Qingyuan, who had heard the commotion and walked over. If she remembered correctly, the prefecture magistrate of Shuang prefecture was surnamed Dai. Seeing that she understood, the soldier nodded slightly. Gu Yundong found it strange. This person seemed to be a soldier. How did he become a subordinate of the prefecture magistrate? This thought flashed across her mind. Gu Yundong quickly walked to the front of the carriage and saw a man in his 20s getting out of the carriage. He turned around and helped an elegant woman down. Gu Yundong immediately put on a smile and welcomed her. Madame Dai, welcome, welcome. I didn't expect you to come. Please forgive me for not welcoming you from afar. Madame Dai had a gentle personality. When she saw Gu Yundong, she smiled. Boss Gu, you're too polite. I've long heard that there are many good things in Boss Gu's shop. I have to come and take a look. Her attitude was kind, so Gu Yundong smiled. Very good. She wasn't the kind of woman who particularly valued rules and looked down on businesswomen. Madame Dai, young Master Dai, please come in. Madame Dai nodded and slowly stepped into the shop. On the other hand, young Master Dai took a few more glances at Gu Yundong. Different from Madame Dai, young Master Dai had already learned a lot about Miss Gu from his father before he came. For example, the white sugar that even the imperial court valued was made by Miss Gu. He had come here today because of the instructions of the prefecture magistrate. It was to let those people who wanted to secretly scheme against Gus think twice. They should be smarter. Gus had many backers. However, to be honest, this Miss Gu was indeed impressive. Even Qingyuan was full of praise for her. As he was thinking, someone suddenly blocked his way. Young Master Dai looked up and saw Shao Qingyuan say expressionlessly, "This way, please." He brought the guest to the backyard. Young Master Dai saw that he was wearing ordinary clothes, but the man's eyes were very sharp. His entire body trembled, and he retracted his attention. As for Madame Dai, she parted ways with her son after entering the shop. Madame Dai's status was different. Gu Yundong had personally received her, so she instructed Zhong to be careful and led Madame Dai upstairs. When Shuang rushed downstairs, she happened to bump into the two of them. Chapter 674. Madame Dai is here. It wasn't just Zhou, Dafu, and the others. The surrounding people who were watching the commotion, and even those who were secretly thinking about it, were all shocked when they recognized the symbol of the carriage. Their eyes widened. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Gus. Before Gu Yundong could look at the symbol, she was distracted by a person sitting in front of the carriage. She had seen this person before. Wasn't this the soldier who provided her with clues when she planned to earn money by drawing images after fleeing to the Shuang prefecture? Gu Yundong still remembered his words. That bandit killed my good brother who fought alongside me. I dream of him every night. I know very well how many moles there were on his face. She thought that they would never meet again, but he actually came. The soldier strode towards her. Miss Gu, we meet again. He almost didn't dare to recognize her. The last time they met, this girl was sloppy, and he couldn't tell if she was a woman. Now that they met again, the difference was like heaven and earth. She was graceful and beautiful, making people's eyes light up. However, he did not stare at her. Soon, he lowered his voice and said softly, "Lady Gu, Madame Dai and young Master Dai are here." Dai? Gu Yundong's pupils constricted. She exchanged glances with Shao Qingyuan, who had heard the commotion and walked over. If she remembered correctly, the prefecture magistrate of Shuang Prefecture was surnamed Dai. Seeing that she understood, the soldier nodded slightly. Gu Yundong found it strange. This person seemed to be a soldier. How did he become a subordinate of the prefecture magistrate? This thought flashed across her mind. Gu Yundong quickly walked to the front of the carriage and saw a man in his 20s getting out of the carriage. He turned around and helped an elegant woman down. Gu Yundong immediately put on a smile and welcomed her. "Madame Dai, welcome, welcome. I didn't expect you to come. Please forgive me for not welcoming you from afar." Madame Dai had a gentle personality. When she saw Gu Yundong, she smiled. "Boss Gu, you're too polite. I've long heard that there are many good things in Boss Gu's shop. I have to come and take a look." Her attitude was kind, so Gu Yundong smiled. Very good. She wasn't the kind of woman who particularly valued rules and looked down on businesswomen. "Madame Dai, young Master Dai, please come in." Madame Dai nodded and slowly stepped into the shop. On the other hand, young Master Dai took a few more glances at Gu Yundong. Different from Madame Dai, young Master Dai had already learned a lot about Miss Gu from his father before he came. For example, the white sugar that even the imperial court valued was made by Miss Gu. He had come here today because of the instructions of the prefecture magistrate. It was to let those people who wanted to secretly scheme against Gus think twice. They should be smarter. Gus had many backers. However, to be honest, this Miss Gu was indeed impressive. Even Qingyuan was full of praise for her. As he was thinking, someone suddenly blocked his way. Young Master Dai looked up and saw Shao Qingyuan say expressionlessly, "This way, please." He brought the guest to the backyard. Young Master Dai saw that he was wearing ordinary clothes, but the man's eyes were very sharp. His entire body trembled, and he retracted his attention. As for Madame Dai, she parted ways with her son after entering the shop. Madame Dai's status was different. Gu Yundong had personally received her, so she instructed Zheng Gang to be careful and led Madame Dai upstairs. When Shuang rushed downstairs, she happened to bump into the two of them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 676. Fortunately, she was prepared before she could finish speaking. She saw Lu Hongxiu, giving her an anxious look. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly and said a few more words to Madame Dave and Shuang before letting them rest. She turned around and left. The moment she went out, Lu Hongxiu leaned closer and whispered, "Miss, the milk tea is gone." Huh? Gu Yundong was surprised. Didn't they only have 3 cups? Why is it gone? She had brought a big pot. Those 3 cups were not very big, right? Lu Hongxiu was a little ashamed. When I was in the kitchen just now, I had just scooped out 2 cups of milk tea when young Master Lu Wei came in. Since he asked, Lu Hongxiu naturally answered respectfully. Unexpectedly, Lu Wei's eyes lit up when he heard that Gu Yundong had made this drink. Then, without another word, he picked up the porcelain pot and ran away. Even Lu Hongxiu, who had always been cautious and smart, did not expect this person to have such tricks. She did not expect young Master Lu to be so thick-skinned. He didn't even say hello before snatching the item and running away. Lu Hongxiu was about to cry. How could anyone be like this? She wanted to chase after him, but Lu Wei was long gone. In addition, she was in a hurry to deliver milk tea to Madame Dai, so Lu Hongxiu could only ignore Lu Wei for the time being. Gu Yundong slapped her forehead. Lu Hongxiu knelt down nervously. "It's my fault. Miss, please punish me." Get up, get up." Gu Yundong pulled her up. "You're indeed not vigilant enough about this matter. But it's not entirely your fault. Lu Wei, this bastard." Fortunately, she made a lot of milk tea. Other than the pot in the kitchen cabinet, there was another pot in her spatial storage. Otherwise, it would be awkward if she promised Shuang but could not take it out. You go ahead. Don't worry about the milk tea. I still have a pot. They'll send it to Miss Nye later. When Lu Hongxiu heard this, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she took her leave in a low voice and went to the second floor to entertain Madame Dai and Shuang. Only then did Gu Yundong return to the shop. She went behind the counter. Seeing Aunt Ku and Madame Yang sitting here packing, she went over to say a few words. Then, she squatted down, opened the cabinet below, and quietly placed the milk tea from the space. The milk tea was still a little hot, so she put it here to cool down. After closing the cabinet and locking it, Gu Yundong came out from behind the counter. There were still many customers, but there were also many helpers. Everyone was busy in an orderly manner. Everything seemed to be in order. Shao Qingyuan was in the backyard, and little Kiki was on the second floor. Zheng Gang was also maintaining order in the shop. Gu Yundong was slightly free, so she shifted her gaze to the door. Then, it landed on the carriage of the Zhou mansion not far away. Good. They hadn't had a chance to leave yet, so don't blame her for being rude. Gu Yundong tidied her clothes slightly and smiled. She strode towards the carriage opposite. Zhou Daff's heart turned cold when he saw the Dai family's carriage. He knew that he could not afford to offend Gus. In fact, if he met them in the future, he would have to avoid them and treat them well. Zhou Dafu was no longer in the mood to cause trouble. He just wanted to hurry back. However, his legs were a little weak, and he could not even get into the carriage. Just then, Gu Yundong came over. Zhou Dafu could feel the cold sweat on his forehead. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Zhou Dafu had just handed over 1,000 taels of silver, and his heart was bleeding. How could he have the mood to look at the shop and raise any suggestions? He wanted to talk with the young master of the prefecture magistrate's family and the steward of the Nye residence. But Gu Yundong had no intention of bringing him to the backyard. Zhou Dafu was afraid that he would lose money if he stayed any longer, so he walked around randomly. After knowing that it was hopeless to get to know the Dai family and the Nye family, he simply bade farewell and left the Gu family's shop. Gu Yundong stood at the door with a smile. Take care, old Master Zhou. Please come again. Again? He would never come again, not even if he died. Zhou Dafu hurriedly returned to his carriage. Steward Zhou had also sent away the local hooligans and returned. The moment Zhou Dafu saw him, he was furious. He clenched his fists and punched him hard in the face. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 678. Mrs. Zhou, Concubine Gu. One punch was not enough. When he saw Steward Zhou fall to the ground, he went up and gave him 2 ruthless kicks. It's all your fault, old thing. Not only did you embarrass me, but you also wasted so much money. You dog, I'll settle this score with you when I get back. With that, he ignored Steward Zhou and got into the carriage, letting Ah Feng drive him away quickly. Steward Zhou was still lying on the ground. Many people around him saw the commotion and started pointing at him. Steward Zhou buried his head under his arm and snorted twice. However, his eyes were filled with resentment as he gritted his teeth. After a while, he got up and staggered back to the Zhou mansion. Zhou Dafu had returned home earlier. After calming himself down on the way back, his mood was finally not so bad. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the residence, Mrs. Zhou walked over and said, "Where did Master go so early in the morning? Little June is in trouble again." Next door, before she could finish speaking, Zhou Dafu interrupted her fiercely. "Trouble, trouble. He only knows how to cause trouble all day long. What kind of mother are you? Do you know how to teach children? I've been busy enough outside every day. It wasn't easy for me to get home. Can you save me the trouble?" He was extremely frustrated. Seeing that he had already walked out of Mrs. Zhou's courtyard, he stopped in his tracks and turned around. "If you have nothing to do, you should think about how to teach your son well. He'll go to Concubine Gus." With that, he left. Mrs. Zhou's face suddenly darkened. Seeing that he had disappeared after turning around, she was so angry that she kicked away the stool onto the corridor. Am I the only one who has a son? As a father, he doesn't care about his son and blames it on me. If old Madam hadn't doted on June like that previously, would he not listen to me now? He's good. He hides under women's skirts all day long. Concubine Gu, a widow with children, can be a treasure. He hasn't seen a woman in 8 lifetimes. She was so angry that she spoke without thinking. The nanny beside her hurriedly stroked her back and advised softly, "Madam, don't be angry. I'm afraid Master is in a bad mood today." His words were too harsh. "Madam, don't take it to heart and be angry with Master. Otherwise, won't that Gu be benefited?" Mrs. Zhou sneered. "I don't know what that Gu woman did. She's already so old, but she still has Master under his control. I reckon Master is just feeling that she's new. After a while, he'll know that Aunt Gu, a country bumpkin, is extremely vulgar and will only embarrass Master. At that time, we don't have to do anything. Master will send her away." Mrs. Zhou turned around and returned to her room. It was probably because of the nanny's persuasion that she was not as angry as before. However, she still frowned and said, "It's been nearly a year, but Master hasn't grown tired of her. Didn't I ask you to keep an eye on her? Has there been any abnormality on her side recently?" The nanny shook her head. "She's very well behaved and doesn't go out. There's no abnormality at all." Mrs. Zhou was angry. "Keep a close eye on her. Report to me if anything happens. Also, keep a close eye on the servants she orders around." Yes. Yundong did not know about the Zhou mansion. She had just received 1,000 taels of silver from Zhou Dafu and was in a good mood. There were many people taking care of the shop, so she planned to go upstairs to entertain Madame Dai. Unexpectedly, as soon as she turned around, she saw a familiar figure walk in. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 678. Mrs. Zhou. Concubine Gu. One punch was not enough. When he saw Steward Zhou fall to the ground, he went up and gave him 2 ruthless kicks. "It's all your fault, old thing. Not only did you embarrass me, but you also wasted so much money. You dog, I'll settle this score with you when I get back." With that, he ignored Steward Zhou and got into the carriage, letting Ah Feng drive him away quickly. Steward Zhou was still lying on the ground. Many people around him saw the commotion and started pointing at him. Steward Zhou buried his head under his arm and snorted twice. However, his eyes were filled with resentment as he gritted his teeth. After a while, he got up and staggered back to the Zhou mansion. Zhou Dafu had returned home earlier. After calming himself down on the way back, his mood was finally not so bad. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the residence, Mrs. Zhou walked over and said, "Where did Master go so early in the morning? Little June is in trouble again." Next door, before she could finish speaking, Zhou Dafu interrupted her fiercely. "Trouble, trouble. He only knows how to cause trouble all day long. What kind of mother are you? Do you know how to teach children? I've been busy enough outside every day. It wasn't easy for me to get home. Can you save me the trouble?" He was extremely frustrated. Seeing that he had already walked out of Mrs. Zhou's courtyard, he stopped in his tracks and turned around. "If you have nothing to do, you should think about how to teach your son well. He'll go to Concubine Gus." With that, he left. Mrs. Zhou's face suddenly darkened. Seeing that he had disappeared after turning around, she was so angry that she kicked away the stool onto the corridor. Am I the only one who has a son? As a father, he doesn't care about his son and blames it on me. If old Madam hadn't doted on June like that previously, would he not listen to me now? He's good. He hides under women's skirts all day long. Concubine Gu, a widow with children, can be a treasure. He hasn't seen a woman in 8 lifetimes. She was so angry that she spoke without thinking. The nanny beside her hurriedly stroked her back and advised softly, "Madam, don't be angry. I'm afraid Master is in a bad mood today." His words were too harsh. "Madam, don't take it to heart and be angry with Master. Otherwise, Won't that Gu be benefited? Mrs. Zhou sneered. I don't know what that Gu woman did. She's already so old, but she still has Master under his control. I reckon Master is just feeling that she's new. After a while, he'll know that Aunt Gu, a country bumpkin, is extremely vulgar and will only embarrass Master. At that time, we don't have to do anything. Master will send her away. Mrs. Zhou turned around and returned to her room. It was probably because of a nanny's persuasion that she was not as angry as before. However, she still frowned and said, It's been nearly a year, but Master hasn't grown tired of her. Didn't I ask you to keep an eye on her? Has there been any abnormality on her side recently? The nanny shook her head. She's very well behaved and doesn't go out. There's no abnormality at all. Mrs. Zhou was angry. Keep a close eye on her. Report to me if anything happens. Also, keep a close eye on the servants she orders around. Yes. Gu Yundong did not know about the Zhou mansion. She had just received 1,000 taels of silver from Zhou Dafu and was in a good mood. There were many people taking care of the shop, so she planned to go upstairs to entertain Madame Dai. Unexpectedly, as soon as she turned around, she saw a familiar figure walk in. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 680. Will he take revenge? Annie, you've been here for a long time. If you don't plan to buy anything, can you make way for the customers behind you? Gu Yundong spoke with a smile, but Madame Sun's face turned red. She looked at Gu Yundong and then at Su Changshan. She stammered, This shop belongs to you? Could it be yours? Madame Sun was speechless for a long time. She wanted to ask Gu Yundong why she had to find a former thief to be her assistant in such a big shop. However, she could not ask. She could even feel the people around her looking at her, as if they were pointing and saying something. She vaguely heard someone say, Don't come in if you can't afford it. It's been a long time, but they didn't buy anything. Don't tell me they want to take advantage of the chaos to get something. That's right. Otherwise, why would the boss come over to warn them? Madame Sun had always treated Su Changshan as a thief. She mocked and ridiculed him every day. Who knew that one day she would be criticized as a dirty person? She was so angry that she wanted to retort, but the two neighbors beside her had already turned red. They did not want to complicate matters at all and pulled her away. Gu Yundong sneered and said to Su Changshan, Ignore them. Continue working. Su Changshan nodded gratefully. Yes, boss. On the other side, Madame Sun only broke free after being pulled out of the shop for a long time. Without those strange gazes, her temper rose again. What are you doing? What's there to escape? We didn't steal anything. Why should we be slandered by them? The other two looked at each other and said, It's obvious that the boss doesn't welcome us. Why are we still staying there? Making a fool of ourselves? Madame Sun widened her eyes. What do you mean by not welcoming us? She runs a shop and does business. We're guests when we go in. We're going to spend money. She has to treat us respectfully. Even if she doesn't welcome us, can she chase us away? Why not? Do you think she cares about our one tael of silver? Didn't you hear that when those people were paying the bill just now, it was dozens of taels of silver? You said it yourself. The customers coming and going in this shop are either rich or noble. Even the prefecture magistrate's wife is here. What are we? Madame Sun was a little indignant at first, but when she heard the words prefecture magistrate's wife, she suddenly reacted and her face turned pale. She didn't dare to say anything else. If she had made a scene in the shop just now, she would have been the one to suffer. Madame Sun started to feel uneasy and walked home in a daze. On the other hand, the other two people said softly, I didn't expect the boss to really not mind the kid from the Su family's bad reputation and arrange for him to work in such a big shop. Do you think Su Changshan will become rich in the future? The customers of this shop will all be nobles in the future. The people he knows in the future will be amazing. We didn't seem to treat the Su family well in the past. As the two of them spoke, they could not help but take another look at Madame Sunday. The one who treated the Su family the worst was Madame Sun, who was the Su family's neighbor. In the past, she had sabotaged Su Changshen's job several times and badmouthed the Su family everywhere. In the future, if the Su family wanted to take revenge, the Sun family would be the first to suffer. When the two of them thought of this, they subconsciously kept a distance from Madame Sunday. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 681. The shop's second floor. Yundong saw that all the troublemakers had left, so she went to the second floor in a relaxed manner. On the second floor, Shuang was talking to Madame Dai. Little Yunka was writing calligraphy. Madame Dai liked her very much and would guide her from time to time. Yundong raised her eyebrows. It was very rare to receive guidance from the prefecture magistrate's wife. Her footsteps could not help but lighten. Shuang was the first to see her and quickly waved her hand. "Are you done? What were you talking about?" Yundong walked to the chair opposite them and sat down. Little Yunka looked up and saw that it was her elder sister. She immediately smiled and continued to write. However, Shuang said excitedly, "Auntie and I were talking about your house." Sister Yundong, can I come here often in the future? I think the decorations here are especially exquisite, and this chair is comfortable and beautiful. There are books here, and there's such delicious milk tea. I'll call my good friends over. We can also play chess and write. It's much better than staying at home. Don't worry, we want eat and drink for free. Yundong smiled. The second floor was indeed not bad. When she was renovating, she saw that the spatial storage was quite big, so Zheng Gang suggested that they also put goods on the second floor. Yundong thought about it and refused. The floor below was already big enough. Her goods were displayed on the first floor. If the guests wanted more, they could take the goods from the storeroom in the backyard. The second floor could be used to entertain guests. Some people with extraordinary statuses could be invited to the second floor for a meeting if they wanted to buy a lot of things. Therefore, the second floor was equivalent to an office. There was also a small cubicle at the back with a bed inside that could be used to rest. There were a few more tables and chairs today for the ladies because the shop had just opened. However, looking at it like this, it was indeed like a modern cafe. The environment was very quiet and comfortable. Wasn't the meaning in Shuang's words that she was bringing her little sisters to the cafe for afternoon tea? However, Yundong did not intend to treat this place as a cafe. After all, it was inconvenient. If you want to bring your friends over, they'll naturally welcome them. However, the shop is downstairs. Not only is it noisy, but what if someone doesn't know etiquette and comes up to offend you? The stairs to the second floor were in the shop. If the shop assistant was too busy and did not notice, it was possible for anyone to run up. Moreover, if the second floor became a cafe, she would not have an office. Most importantly, it was not worth it. It was not profitable and would cost a lot of time. Madame Dai, who was at the side, also considered this. Shuang, don't cause trouble. Which of your friends isn't a young lady from a rich family? They have a lot of people serving them when they go out. Yundong's shop isn't even big enough for them to stand in. When the time comes, no one will dare to enter the shop downstairs, and it will affect her business. Shuang thought about it and agreed. She was a little dejected and sighed. But it's too boring to stay at home all day. Yundong thought for a moment and smiled. Perhaps you can open a tea house like this yourself? Shuang was stunned. Opened herself? Even Madame Dai's eyes lit up. She really liked the decorations here. It was comfortable and enjoyable. The two of them looked at Yundong in unison. The latter blinked. Why were they looking at her like that? Shuang grabbed Yundong's hands and said excitedly, "Sister Yundong, you're right. We can open it ourselves, but if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 682. Cooperation to open a shop again, but what? Yundong had a bad feeling. Shuang chuckled. But even if we open a tea house like this, we can only prepare some ordinary tea and snacks. There's no such delicious pearl milk tea, such delicious dried fruits, and such delicious and fragrant snacks. What's the difference between that and an ordinary tea house? It won't attract customers at all. Yundong moved back. So, you want me to supply you? No. What's the point of supplying? Shuang moved closer to her. Let's work together to open a shop. Cooperation? Yundong fell into deep thought. Shuang nodded vigorously. That's right, that's right. Let's work together to open a shop. It'll offer money and effort, and you can come up with ideas. Let's earn money together. How about that? Madame Dai was unhappy. Everyone has a share. Don't forget about me. Shuang turned her head and said happily, It's even better if Auntie can participate. I only know some young ladies. Annie knows those rich ladies. No one can compare to you in terms of connections. With Annie around, our business will definitely become even more popular. She was a little excited just thinking about it. Shuang was only 15 years old, 2 months younger than Yundong. She was the eldest daughter of the Nye family and had been served by someone since she was young. At this age, she only ate, drank, and played. Occasionally, she would read, write, and learn some zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. However, it felt especially boring. It was as if her entire life had passed without any waves. When she was old enough to marry someone, she still repeated the same thing in the residence. She had heard about Yundong from Yekong. She knew that Yundong had escaped from the famine. Eldest brother rarely praised people, let alone a little girl who was about his age. But eldest brother said that he admired Yundong. She could bring 3 family members from Yongning Prefecture to Shuang Prefecture at such a young age. Not only was she safe, but she also ensured that her family was unharmed. Even an adult man could not do that. At the very least, Shuang could not guarantee that he could do this. At that time, Shuang really wanted to see Yundong. Later on, Yundong actually sent New Year's goods over, and they were white sugar that made her father's eyes light up. Shuang did not dare to imagine that a little girl who was a penniless refugee a few months ago would actually have such achievements in such a short period of time. She admired Yundong especially. She heard from Aunt Ku that Yundong had come to the prefectural city to open a shop. Before Aunt Ku could explain her intentions, she insisted on coming over to take a look. Then, she saw such a huge shop. Therefore, Shuang's heart began to stir. However, Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. No, the two of you were so excited, but you didn't seem to have asked for my opinion. Shuang finally realized that she was too quiet. She quickly calmed down and asked nervously, Sister Yundong, are you unwilling? Madame Dai also said, We know that you've just opened a shop and are very busy. If you want to cooperate, you don't have to worry about anything else. We're here. You just have to tell us what we need to do. That's right, that's right. We'll look for the shop. We'll pay the silver. You just have to use your mouth. Madame Dai said, There's no need to specially look for the shop. I happen to have shop there. The location is not bad and the environment is good. Coincidentally, it was vacated some time ago. Recently, I've been thinking about what business to do. Really? That's great. The right time, the right place, and the right people. It's the will of the heavens. Yundong was speechless. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 683. Misunderstanding. After speaking to Shuang, she turned to look at Yundong. Yundong's mouth twitched, and she said, Actually, you can buy my recipe. When the time comes, before she could finish speaking, she saw Shuang shake her head so hard that the pearl hairpin on her head almost fell off. She said very seriously, No, you have to participate. Why not? Shuang did not speak, but Madame Dai, who was at the side, seemed to have read her mind. She could not help but cover her mouth and laugh. I know why. She doesn't have confidence in herself. She's afraid that she'll mess up the shop that she has worked so hard to open. Yundong looked at Madame Dai. Don't we still have you? Madame Dai shrugged and said frankly, I can still be of some use to deal with those madams and young ladies, but I'm afraid I can't operate a shop. Otherwise, why do you think my shop is empty? Yundong felt terrible. She did not need to care about anything else. Didn't they know that it was more tiring to use the brains? Shuang blinked and said pitifully, Sister Yundong, look, you just have to come up with an idea. We'll do whatever you say. When the time comes, you'll take 50% of the money we earn. How about that? Not so good. Why don't you take a look at how old you are? Why are you still acting cute like Yinka? Madame Dai was more rational. She analyzed the situation from the point of view. Yundong, actually, this won't do you any harm. Your business will only grow in the future, and you'll get to know more and more people. When the time comes, the customers in our shop we're cooperating to run will all be your connections. It did make sense. If she opened an elegant and comfortable tea house with the recommendation of Madame Dai and Eldest Miss Nia, the people who went would be some women of high status. The prefecture magistrate was working for the emperor, and the Nia family had a close relationship with Aunt Ku. Speaking of which, Gu Yundong was the one who had taken advantage of them. Madame Dai and Nia Shuang looked at each other. Seeing that she did not say anything and was probably thinking about the feasibility, they immediately stopped talking. Since they were doing business, she had to know the pros and cons. Actually, when Madame Dai saw how cautious she was, she heaved a sigh of relief. If she was like Nia Shuang, whose eyes lit up the moment an idea popped up, she would not be at ease. After a long time, Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. She met their eyes and said, All right, let's cooperate. But we still need to discuss the division of the profits. All right, you'll take 60%. Gu Yundong, no, wait. You've misunderstood me. She rubbed her forehead. I'm saying that 50% is too much. You said it yourself. You'll be responsible for the shop, the silver, and the hard work. It's also your job to attract customers. I'm just giving an idea. It's not appropriate for me to take so much. Yes, yes. Even Dai nodded. If you don't participate, we want Dare to open the shop even if we pay. However, Gu Yundong insisted on refusing. It might not be a problem in the early stages, but what about later? When the business became big and there was a conflict, her shares would be the primary problem. Moreover, there was no problem with Madame Dai and Ye Shuang now, but what would their families think if they knew? Besides, among the three of them, she was the weakest. Therefore, from the beginning, she should make it clear about the problem of the shares so that they would not fall out over such things in the future. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 684. Promoting the villagers. Seeing that she was determined, Madame Dai and Ye Shuang had no choice but to take a step back. Since the three of them were cooperating, it was naturally best to distribute them equally. However, it was not easy to divide, so Madame Dai, who had offered the shop, took up 40%. Gu Yundong and Ye Shuang each took 30%. Madame Dai did not agree. In the end, it was Gu Yundong who said that if anyone caused trouble in the shop in the future, only Madame Dai's identity could suppress it. Therefore, taking 40% meant that she was the most responsible. Madame Dai did not say anything, but she looked at Gu Yundong with admiration. This girl was so young, but she was very mature. No wonder she could go from a penniless refugee to her current achievements in such a short period of time. At this moment, she was especially confident that the shop that was about to open would definitely be popular. Since the decision was made, they had to discuss the details. However, Gu Yundong had just opened his shop today and was very busy. She did not have time to discuss it. Therefore, she could only make an appointment tomorrow. The Gus has just opened. I still have to come and keep an eye on it for at least the first 3 days. Where's Madame's shop? Let's go over tomorrow morning and discuss how to repair and decorate it. Madame Dai took a sip of milk tea and said, Since we're going to open a shop together, Yundong, you're treating me like an outsider if you call me Madame again. Gu Yundong laughed. They'll be like Nye Shuang and call you Auntie? That's good. Madame Dai was satisfied and said, All right, there's no hurry to open a new shop. Naturally, we have to wait for you to finish your business first. We'll get someone to clean up that shop first. It's a mess inside. Let's go over the day after tomorrow. Sure. Gu Yundong nodded. She suddenly thought of Feng Danning, who was still in the prefectural city, and asked, I wonder if Annie has any familiar carpenters? There were definitely some, and those carpenters who could catch Madame Deus I were all capable and serious. However, Madame Dai looked at the house in front of her and thought of the counters and shelves under the house. They were really different from what she had seen in the past. She immediately understood. I'm not familiar with wood carpenters. I have to go back and ask our steward. However, I see that this house is well repaired. I wonder which master did the job. If it's possible, Shuang nodded at the side. Yes, I also think that these tables and chairs are well done. Then master's carpentry skills are good. Let's hire him. Yundong nodded. To tell you the truth, the carpentry work here was done by a master from my village. Our new house, the shop in the county city, and the shop in the prefectural city were all renovated by him. We've worked together so many times that we're already very familiar with each other. He can immediately understand what I want. I thought that if you don't have a suitable candidate, you'll recommend him. That's good. Madame Dai immediately agreed. Shuang also nodded at the side. She knew nothing about this. In any case, if she was asked to pay, she would pay. If she had to work, she would work. She just had to be obedient. Yundong said, then it's settled. He'll talk to Uncle Feng later. Madame Dai liked Yundong even more. Not only was she smart, but she was also caring and would promote the people from her village. It was only reassuring to work with such a person. However, Shuang had already calculated her private savings in her heart. She was the young lady of a merchant family, so she had quite a lot of money every month. In addition to the red packets and New Year's money that her uncles and aunts gave her every year, she was actually a little rich woman. If it was really not enough, she would borrow money from her eldest brother. As she was thinking, a loud shout suddenly came from downstairs. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 685. Lu Wei causing trouble. The three of them were stunned for a moment. They looked at each other and hurriedly went downstairs. The voice came from the backyard. After the loud shout, there were waves of cheers. The three of them didn't understand. It wasn't until they stood at the entrance of the backyard that they realized that Shao, Qingyuan, and young Master Dai were fighting. Not only did the others not stop the fight, they even applauded as if they were watching a show. Yundong frowned. She turned around and saw Lu Wei standing not far away. She hurried forward and asked, "What happened?" Lu Wei was holding a large cup in his hand. The cup contained the pearl milk tea that he had snatched from Lu Hongxiu. He was drinking it happily. Hearing Yundong's question, he did not turn around. He just waved his hand and said, it's all right. It's just a spar." Hearing that it was a spar, Madame Dai, who came over later, heaved a sigh of relief. It would be too unreasonable to fight at someone else's shop on their opening day. Yundong could tell that the two of them were not really enemies. She was just curious. Why are these two sparring all of a sudden? Speaking of this, Lu Wei became a little complacent. I heard that young Master Deus martial arts are powerful, so I was quite unconvinced. I said that brother Shao could fight a tiger with his bare hands and let the two of them compete. So they're sparring. Yundong felt the veins on her forehead twitch violently. So, this bastard was the one who instigated the two of them to spar? The problem was that this troublemaker actually had the cheek to hold a cup of milk tea and watch the commotion from the side, as if it had nothing to do with him. Yundong was considering whether to steam him or braise him. Lu Wei watched with great interest and did not realize that the person beside him was Yundong. However, he seemed to feel a resentful gaze coming from the other side, as if he had done something heinous. Lu Wei frowned slightly. He turned around and met Shuang's dissatisfied expression. Her gaze fell on the cup in his hand and finally fixed on the milk tea. Lu Wei was stunned and asked, "What are you doing?" He hid the cup to his side. Shuang pursed her lips and retracted her gaze. She looked at Yundong, who was standing on the other side of Lu Wei, and asked, "Why is his cup especially big?" It seemed that one cup was as big as two of hers. Huh? Lu Wei finally remembered who the voice belonged to. What the F***CK? Without looking back, he ran away with the milk tea in his hand, as if a dog was chasing him. Gu Yundong was speechless. Why on earth had she become friends with such a person? Was it too late to regret it? Could they break off their friendship? Forget it. Let's pretend we don't know each other in the future. Gu Yundong turned her head and focused her attention on the two people who were still sparring in the courtyard. The two of them were unarmed and were fighting hand-to-hand, but it still made people's hearts surge. Gu Yundong knew that Shao Qingyuan was good at fighting, but this was the first time she had seen him fight so well. A moment later, the two of them stopped and took a step back. Young Master Dai smiled and cupped his hands. Shao Qingyuan also smiled. Gu Yundong could tell that he was very happy. Shao Qingyuan turned around and saw her. He smiled at her. Only then did Gu Yundong step forward and hand him a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. Master Dai also walked to young Master Dai's side and rebuked, "You were too reckless. Why don't you take a look at what day it is today?" Young Master Dai smiled and walked in front of Shao Qingyuan. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 686. Giving red packets. Young Master Dai's name was Dai Wenhua. Although his aura was still unstable, he still looked like a graceful young master. He looked at Shao Qingyuan with admiration. "Young Master Liu just said that you didn't specially learn this martial art from anyone." Shao Qingyuan nodded. Dai Wenhuo's eyes lit up even more. "Then you're really talented. There's a martial arts master in our residence who's very powerful. He used to be a famous figure in the martial arts world. Are you interested in getting him to give you some pointers?" Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment and glanced at Gu Yundong before nodding. "Thank you. What are you thanking me for? I was especially thrilled today." David was really happy. "I heard that you're good at hunting. Let's go hunting together next time. By the way, your sweeping kick just now was not bad. Where did you learn it?" "I practiced it when I fought wolves." Shao Qingyuan's words had always been concise, but he was so patient. He must have appreciated Dai Wenhua. Gu Yundong did not disturb them anymore. She shook her head and stood beside Madame Dai again. Seeing that it was getting late, Madame Dai decided to take her leave. The others stood up to leave. Gu Yundong had originally wanted to ask them to stay for lunch, but everyone was only here to congratulate them on her grand opening. Besides, they had actually eaten a lot this morning and were a little full now. Hence, they left resolutely. Gu Yundong gave each of them canned white sugar as a return gift. As for those who wanted to buy something else, Gu Yundong asked someone to pack them up. In the end, she even brought back 2 pots of pearl milk tea from Madame Dai and Shuang. Only Dai Wenhua didn't leave. He was with Shao Qingyuan, and the two of them chatted for a long time. Gu Yundong could occasionally hear them fighting. She couldn't tell that Dai Wenhua was actually a martial arts fanatic. On the first day of Gus' opening, business was booming. After closing at night, when everyone took the account books to settle the accounts, they realized that they had earned a total of 1,800 taels. Compared to when she was in Fengkai County, her profits had doubled. Gu Yundong felt a little emotional. This prefectural city was a prefectural city after all. There were just too many rich people. However, this was only the first day. It would definitely descend later. Moreover, because of the activity, many people did not want to let go of this opportunity. There were many people. After a busy day, they were clearly very tired, but everyone was very excited. Gu Yundong was elated. She gave everybody red packets. Even little Yunka got one. The little girl was a little surprised. "Big sister, I didn't do anything." Gu Yundong patted her head. "Who said that? Didn't you help big sister entertain your sister Shuang and Auntie Dai?" The young lady thought about it and agreed. She had introduced the pearl milk tea and was carried around by sister Shuang and Aunt Dai. Hence, she happily accepted the red packet and went to show off in front of Madame Yang. The Liu family of 4 also each had one. They did not expect that they would get a big red packet without even receiving their first month's salary. They were instantly excited. Su Changshan was the most excited. He had just taken a look, and there were 2 taels of silver inside. He could cut a piece of meat when he went back later and buy cloth for his mother and sister so that they could have new clothes to wear. Su Changshan's heart was filled with gratitude. His grip on the red packet tightened slightly, and his eyes burned. Lu Wei was very unhappy because he didn't have a red packet. He clearly helped to entertain the guests, and even helped to wipe the tables and chairs. He was especially diligent. Gu Yundong ignored him. After the shop closed, she went to look for Feng Danning. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 687. Quiet in the noise. Feng Danning was also in the backyard today. He heard many people say that the structure of the shop was refreshing. While he was happy, he was also a little disappointed, because although these people liked the place a lot, they didn't have any suitable jobs for him. However, this was also good. Business did not come easily. As long as everyone thought of him when they needed him in the future, it was enough. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong came looking for him at night. Uncle Feng, you might not be able to leave for the time being. There's a shop to be renovated in a few days, so it'll have to trouble you. Feng Danning was so excited that his eyes lit up. Not only him, but the two carpenters who followed him also asked anxiously, Yundong, are you serious? Where is it? It's on Mingan Road. I'm not sure how big the shop is. We'll go take a look in 2 days. Feng Danning nodded repeatedly. All right. Then we'll wait. When the construction should start, just tell us. We can go over it any time. Gu Yundong smiled. All right, Uncle Feng, you can take this opportunity to meet with your old friends. You won't have time when you're busy later. With that, Gu Yundong went home with everyone else. After dinner, she then talked about her plans to open a shop with Madame Dai and Shuang. Everyone at the dining table was stunned. Cooperate with the prefecture magistrate's wife and Miss Nya? Opening another shop? What's wrong? Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Can I? Sure. Shao Qingyuan supported her unconditionally, no matter what she said. Gu Dajiang nodded repeatedly. I don't know as much about business as you do, but won't you be too tired? It's okay. I can still handle it. The others didn't say anything after hearing this. Only Shao Qingyuan shook his hand slightly. His future wife was walking too quickly, so he had to work hard to keep up. In the next 2 days, Gus' business gradually stabilized. On the 3rd day, the shop on Mingan Road was tidied up. Madame Dai invited her and Shuang to take a look. The shop was quite big, even bigger than Gus. It was also a 2-story building and had a spacious backyard. After being cleaned up, without the obstruction of the shelves, it looked exceptionally empty. Madame Dai brought the two of them around and stood in the hall again. She asked with a smile, How is it? Not bad, right? It's not just good. It's very pleasing. Shuang was too satisfied. Gu Yundong also nodded. The location is good. It's quiet in the midst of the commotion. It's very suitable for drinking tea, chatting, and reading books. The backyard is also big enough. We can also design a few isolated rooms. They can be divided into several areas. Madame Dai was a little proud when she heard that. Since the shop is fine, let's discuss how to renovate it. Yesterday, when she went back and told the prefecture magistrate about this, he still looked a little uncertain. Madame Dai couldn't wait to achieve results for him to see. Gu Yundong took out a piece of paper and a charcoal pen from his sling bag. Yes, let's discuss it first. It'll draw all my opinions and see how the effect is. As they spoke, they moved to the courtyard. There were stone tables and stools there, just enough for them to rest. He'll go first. Shuang was very excited and sat on the stone bench first. I like the long chair on Sister Yundong's 2nd floor. It's a little like a beautiful couch, but it's also a little different. It's very comfortable to sit on. As Gu Yundong listened, she drew the structural design of the shop. She moved quickly, multitasking, but Shuang stopped talking. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 688. Female assistant problem. Gu Yundong was stunned and looked at her suspiciously. However, she realized that Shuang was not the only one. Even Madame Dai could not help but look at the paper she was drawing on. Yundong, your drawing is too realistic. Shuang's eyes widened. She picked up the painting and looked at it again and again. I feel that even if I haven't come to this shop personally, I can still imagine the exact appearance just by looking at your painting. Madame Dai was also amazed. Yundong, I realize that the more I know you, the more powerful you seem to be. How many other abilities of yours do we not know? Gu Yundong blinked and immediately laughed. All right, now is not the time to talk about the painting. Let's discuss how to decorate first and how to arrange the tables and chairs. Shuang wanted to praise her a few more times, but business was more important. She was an open shop now, so she had to grow up. Therefore, she started talking about the decorations in the shop again with a serious expression. The shop was big enough. There could be some decorations downstairs. There was a bar at the entrance to order for customers. There were 2 long tables in the middle that could accommodate 7 to 8 people. There was also a small round table. It didn't have to be big. It was enough to put in some food. She also set up some booths, which could be blocked by a screen. Or the sofas could be placed back to back. There should be a few more windows to make the room look brighter. Due to the fact that most of the guests here were rich and idle ladies, they definitely had to bring maidservants with them when they went out. Therefore, they still needed a resting area in a corner. If they did not want maidservants to serve them during the gathering and tea time, the maidservants could wait here. The second floor was slightly smaller than the first floor, but it was much quieter and had a wider field of vision. Therefore, there were fewer tables, and the distance between the customers was much wider, allowing more space. Moreover, there were books, chessboards, paintings, and everything on the second floor. They were all things that could temper one's emotions. There was also the backyard. There were a few rattan chairs in the courtyard, and some flowers had to be planted. Most importantly, Gu Yundong meant to flatten all the rooms in the backyard and rebuild them into small private rooms to give people privacy. The doors of the private rooms could be locked. The private rooms could also be decorated into various types, such as tatami rooms, women's boudoirs, and solemn studies. The more Lady Dai and Shuang spoke, the more excited they became. It was as if some wild ideas that they had wanted to achieve in the past, but could not, had been implemented in this shop. Gu Yundong listened and recorded. In the end, after editing and deleting their opinions, she drew 3 unique designs. The more Madame Dai and Shuang looked at it, the more satisfied she was. Then, she continued to discuss what to buy in the shop. Pearl milk tea became the best thing that the 2 of them recommended. Of course, there were also all kinds of flower tea and fruit tea. There was even fruit wine with a low alcohol content. The food was pastries and snacks. Gu Yundong provided a few kinds of baked goods, as well as canned fruit shops and other things that she sold at her shop. If there was anyone who liked salty food, there was also dried rice crust, dried fish, potato chips, nuts, and so on. After picking and choosing, they left a few items and drafted the menu. Finally, the most important one was the female employee. Gu Yundong did not intend to get involved in this aspect. She believed that both Madame Dai and Shuang did not lack manpower. As long as the chef in charge of cooking in the kitchen was reliable, it would be easy to find female workers. However, Madame Dai and Shuang did not allow it and insisted that Gu Yundong provide a candidate. Gu Yundong was in a dilemma. She was short of people. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 689. She's engaged. Gu Yundong felt that she was always short of people. Every time she opened a new shop or bought a new house, she would have a headache. However, Madame Dai and Shuang were very insistent. Since it was a 3-person shop, Gu Yundong's candidate was naturally needed. Moreover, Gu Yundong was the backbone of the 3 of them. If she arranged for people to work here, she would understand the situation in the shop more directly. If anything was missing or there might be a problem, she could understand and adjust it immediately. It could not be better. Gu Yundong was speechless. Didn't they say that they would do everything? This was different from what they had agreed on. She felt like she had boarded a pirate ship. Shuang chuckled. Sister Yundong, this is what it means for the capable to do more work. Gu Yundong smiled insincerely. No, I'm incapable. Madame Dai was speechless. Although Gu Yundong had a headache, she still agreed to go back and consider the candidates carefully. Madame Dai had said that she had to hire at least one person. One person. On the way back, Gu Yundong leaned against the carriage wall and sighed. If it's just one, Lan Huater will do. I just don't know if she's willing to come. Lan Huater was Zhuangzi's younger sister. She was doing some chores at home, and she was very smart and good-looking. She was quite suitable. Previously, when Gu Yundong's workshop was recruiting, Lan Huater did not come to apply for the job twice. She had inadvertently asked once, and Lan Huater said that there was a lot of work at home. If she went to the workshop to work, her parents would be too busy. After all, the Sure couple still had to help her manage the 30 acres of orchard. But now that the Sure couple had found someone to help them work in the village, it was much easier. Furthermore, Zhuangzi would be coming to the prefectural city soon, so the siblings would accompany each other. Yes, I'll ask Lan Huater later. Tong Shuaitao looked like she wanted to say something, but hesitated. After a while, she said softly, Miss, I'm afraid Lan Huater won't come. Oh, how did you know? Gu Yundong was a little surprised. Tong Shuaitao said, a few days ago my father delivered goods over. When we were chatting, he unintentionally mentioned that Lan Huater is getting engaged. She had interacted with Lan Huater a few times, and the two of them slowly became familiar with each other. So she asked about her. Huh? Gu Yundong was stunned. Engaged? With whom? It's Jiangbao. Jiangbao. Gu Yundong felt that this name was very familiar. Not long after, she suddenly remembered. It's him? The shop assistant from Brother Shao's pharmacy? Gu Yundong had a deep impression of him. When a man first met her father, he was so indignant that he almost chased the two of them out with a broom when Gu Dajiang deliberately made things difficult for Shao Qingyuan. Later on, when he found out her father's identity, his attitude changed 180 degrees. He flattered her father so much that even Gu Dajiang couldn't take it anymore and hurried out. She did not expect him to be engaged to Lan Huater. Tong Shuaitao said, I heard that it was Zhuangzi who set them up. Zhuangzi and Jiang Bao have a good relationship. He seems to be a reliable person. His family is simple, and his parents are reasonable people. Hence, he entrusted his sister to Jiang Bao. Before Shu came, the two families had just decided to marry them next year. Gu Yundong blinked. They were engaged just like that. Is Lan Huater satisfied with Jiang Bao? Tong Shuaitao nodded. The two of them have met before. I heard that they're quite satisfied. Therefore, Lan Huater would most likely not come to the prefecture capital. Thus, Gu Yundong could only look for a new candidate. However, this time, another figure quickly popped up in her mind. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 690. Let Su Qing come thinking of her. Gu Yundong immediately asked Tong Shuaitao to turn her horse around. Gu Yundong did not know many people, but there were a few who left a good impression on her. One of them was Su Changshan's sister, Su Qing. The first time they met, she was actually more satisfied with Su Qing's personality than she was with Su Changshan. It was just that the shop did not recruit female workers. Otherwise, it would be easier for Su Qing to attract customers with her straightforward personality. Moreover, Su Qing was not bad-looking either. She had a very likable appearance. Coincidentally, her way home was in the same direction as her way to the Su family. It was good to take this opportunity to ask Su Qing for her opinion. If the girl was unwilling, she could only find someone else. It was still early when Gu Yundong arrived at the Su residence. Su Changshan had yet to get off work and return home. The carriage stopped outside the alley as usual. She and Tong Shuaitao walked in. It was unlike the last time she came. There were not many people at the entrance of the Su family's house. Even if the neighbors passed by his house, they seemed to have to avoid him. However, when she arrived at the Su family today, she could still see many people looking at the Su family's courtyard door. She did not know what they were looking at. When Gu Yundong came over, their gazes fell on her. Gu Yundong was already used to such gazes. She only asked Tong Shuai to knock on the door. She stood outside the door and waited. With a glance, she saw Madame Sun again. When Madame Sun met her gaze, she immediately shrank her neck. She no longer had the arrogance and mockery Gu Yundong had seen the first time. She hurriedly entered her house and only quietly opened the door a crack to look out. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Mother Su happened to hear the commotion and came to open the door. When she saw her, she was stunned for a moment and quickly moved aside to invite her in. "Why is Boss Gu here?" She closed the door as she invited her in. After taking a few steps, she felt uneasy and asked, "Did something happen to Changshan?" Gu Yundong shook her head with a smile. "No, he's fine. I came here today for something else." "Is Su Qing here?" "I'm looking for her." Yes. Mother Su quickly nodded and shouted, little Qing, come out quickly. Boss Gu is here. She's looking for you." Su Qing ran out of the kitchen in a hurry. She was surprised to see Gu Yundong. "Boss Gu is looking for me?" "Okay." Gu Yundong entered the central room and did not beat around the bush. She told Su Qing that she wanted to open a new shop. Moreover, this shop specialized in entertaining ladies, so she needed a female shop assistant. She asked her if Su Qing wanted to try. The salary was a little less than Su Changshan's. It was 2 taels of silver a month for now. Of course, this was only temporary. If the business in the shop was good, the salary would definitely increase. Su Qing was stunned. Her mother also stood rooted to the ground in shock, unable to recover for a long time. What did Boss Gu just say? Not only did Boss Gu hire her son as a shop assistant, but she also wanted to hire her daughter as a female shop assistant. The salary was not low. If little Qing went too, the sibling salary would be 5 taels. Moreover, Boss Gu was very generous. 2 days ago, on the first day of business at Gus, she actually gave him a red packet of 2 taels of silver. Su Qing felt her throat go dry. After a while, she asked uncertainly, "Boss Gu, are you really looking for me to be a shop assistant? Are you looking for me, Su Qing?" Gu Yundong was amused by her. "I'm looking for you, of course. Is there a second Su Qing here? Why? Don't you want to go?" "Yes, I do. Since you want to go, I have a few more questions to tell you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 691. Exalted. Su Qing immediately swallowed her saliva. She felt that the next step was the main point. Gu Yundong's expression became more serious. "I won't hide it from you. This shop doesn't belong to me alone. I opened it with 2 other people. One of them is Madame Dai's wife, and the other is the eldest daughter of the Nye family." Mother Su was speechless. Su Qing, Madame Dai, eldest Miss Nye? They felt that there was something wrong with their ears. Although they had long heard from Su Changshan that Madame Dai and Miss Nye had visited to celebrate the opening of Gus, they had never thought that these 2 people would actually cooperate with Boss Gu to open a shop. How capable was this Boss Gu? "You didn't hear wrongly. It's indeed them," Gu Yundong said. "So, you're not the only one working in the shop. There are also people hired by Madame Dai and Miss Nye, and you're the only one I have." Su Qing's expression instantly turned solemn, as if she felt a huge responsibility. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw this. "There's no need to be so nervous. I'm telling you this to make you fully aware of the situation. Mr. Dai and Miss Nye are easy to get along with. They won't make things difficult for you, but I don't know the people under them. I don't know their attitudes either. You have to adjust your relationship with them. But I hope you understand that even if they're Madame Dai and Miss Nye's people, you are not inferior to them. There's no need to curry favor and bow down to them, but you have to grasp a balance. If they bully you, you don't have to hold it in. You have to counterattack when it's time, understand? I don't want my people to be cowards." Su Qing thought about it and could roughly understand what Boss Gu meant. Therefore, after a while, she nodded and said, "I understand. I represent you. If I'm too strong-willed, it'll make things difficult for you. But if I'm too cowardly, it'll make others look down on you. Miss, don't worry. I won't be bullied but I won't be inflexible either. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. This girl was a perceptive person. Actually, in the beginning, she wanted to look for Lan Hua because she was smart. Perhaps she was still a little girl who lived in the countryside and did not have enough knowledge. But as long as she was nurtured well, she would have no problem at all. But now that she saw Su Qing like this, she felt that perhaps she was more suitable. Since you understand your situation, are you still willing to be this assistant? Su Qing nodded vigorously. I'm willing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I won't let you down. Gu Yundong stood up. All right, since you're willing, you can come over tomorrow. Stay by my side for a few days. They'll teach you some communication skills. Gu Yundong felt that she had to let Su Qing understand her personality and her position so that she could get along better with Madame Dai and the rest. Su Qing was very happy and nodded repeatedly. Yes. Seeing that it was getting late, Gu Yundong gave her a few more instructions before turning to leave. Su Qing sent them all the way to the door and watched them disappear into the alley. Then, she turned around in a daze and planned to close the courtyard door. However, the neighbors who had been waiting outside immediately rushed forward and asked, Hey, Su Qing, who is that girl? What is she doing at your house? Before Su Qing could answer, Mother Su had already arrived. Looking at these neighbors who were smiling ingratiatingly, she felt a little proud. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 692. Madame Dai is speechless. That's the owner of the shop where Changshan works. She came to look for our little Qing and gave her a job. After Mother Su finished speaking, before they could react, she slammed the courtyard door shut. Everyone else was stunned. What? Not only did this boss find Su Changshan to be a shop assistant in such a big shop, but she also gave Su Qing a job? How did the Su family suddenly get so lucky? Wasn't this a little too good? Everyone felt a little emotional for a moment, but they were also more determined to build a good relationship with the Su family. Perhaps in the future, this boss would have more jobs. It would be good to get the Su family to help introduce them. However, they didn't know that Mother Su already had other plans. After closing the courtyard door to block the gazes of those who were watching the commotion, Mother Su pulled Su Qing, who was still in a daze, into the central room. She sat on a chair and said, Little Qing, there's something we need to discuss. What is it? Su Qing finally came back to her senses when she heard her mother's serious voice. Mother Su said, Shall we move? Move. Su Qing was surprised. Yes, I've said it before. When we have money in the future, we'll find a new place to live. Although we don't have much money now, we can rent a courtyard elsewhere. Mother Su had been thinking about this problem for a long time. Besides, your brother's shop is on Dahui Road. The shop you'll go to in the future is on Mingen Road. They're too far from home. Your brother is fine. I'm not worried about him, but I'm worried about you commuting so far every day. We can rent a house near Mingen Road. Although the rent there is a little expensive, we can rent this house out. In addition, you and your brother have a salary every month. It won't be a problem to rent a small courtyard. Su Qing thought about it and felt that it was feasible. However, this matter would have to wait until Su Changshan returned before they discussed it together. Su Changshan naturally had no objections. If his shop was too busy and he worked late, he could still stay in the backyard behind the shop. However, Su Qing was different. According to Boss Gu, although her shop had a place for the night watch to rest, it was not suitable to spend the night alone. Still, the next day, Su Qing had to follow Gu Yundong to work. Su Changshan also had to work, so only Mother Su went to look for a house. Su Qing only told her not to work too hard. There was no hurry. After all, the new shop would not open for a while. There was plenty of time. Then, she put on her new clothes and ran to the Gu family's waiter early in the morning to wait at the door. When Gu Yundong went out, she saw that she seemed to have been waiting for a long time. She was stunned. Why didn't you knock and come in? Su Qing smiled in embarrassment. I just got here too. Gu Yundong did not say anything else and brought her and Tong Shueitao to the shop on Mingen Road. There were already a few people standing outside the shop. They were Feng Daneng and the two carpenters. They had been standing here for a long time. They had circled around the shop previously and roughly knew how big it was, so their faces flashed with excitement. When they saw Gu Yundong, the three of them immediately went up to him. Not long after, Madame Dai in Shuang's carriage stopped at the entrance of the shop. After they came down, Gu Yundong turned around and introduced them to Feng Daneng and the other two, as well as Su Qing. Looking at Su Qing, Madame Dai and Shuang were speechless. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 693. Su Qing's conduct. Although they had said that she should at least arrange for one employee, they did not expect Gu Yundong to really only find one person. However, since things had come to this, the two of them could not say anything else. The group first entered the shop to discuss the renovations. Feng Daneng and the other two walked 2 rounds inside. After looking at the blueprint that Gu Yundong had given them and the range that needed to be renovated, their 6 eyes could not help but flash with a scorching light. However, he still explained in advance, the entire backyard has to be rebuilt, so it might take a long time. That doesn't matter, Madame Dai said. The most important thing is to do the job well. I'd rather spend more time to do it meticulously. The room has to be sturdy, and the materials can't be perfunctory. Madam, don't worry. We will definitely do our best. Madame Dai believed in Gu Yundong's recommendation. Next, it was time to discuss the details. Gu Yundong and Feng Daneng had worked together several times, so there were some things that he could understand without her having to explain in detail. He would even suggest some unreasonable points. Therefore, in just half a day, they had already decided on how to renovate this shop. During this period, Su Qing was the one who poured tea and handed over pens and paper. Gu Yundong did not tell her, but she was very self-aware. Not only did she do it in an orderly manner, but she was also exceptionally considerate. After observing her for a day, Gu Yundong was very satisfied. Shuang had a carefree personality and did not pay much attention to it. After all, she was the eldest daughter of the Nye residents and had a maidservant serving her all the time. She was already used to having someone take care of everything for her. However, Madame Dai could see it clearly. Hence, on the way back, she sat in the same carriage as Shuang and could not help but say, although Yundong only found Su Qing, that girl can surpass others by several times. No wonder she could do business so well. Just in terms of hiring people, she makes others feel ashamed. Shuang was at a loss. Seeing this, Madame Dai couldn't help but poke her head. After a while, she told her about Su Qing's performance in the shop today. Shuang was suddenly enlightened. I see. In that case, the person I chose is really too different from Su Qing. I was thinking of bringing her over to show you tomorrow. Now that I hear you say that, I think I have to change people. Shuang's thinking was quite good. If she had to hire someone, she would choose the servants' children. Their indenture was in her hands, and they could be trusted. After returning yesterday, her mammy had recommended 2, and so did her maidservant and 2 sisters. Even those with good culinary skills in the kitchen were suitable to work in the kitchen of the shop. She felt that there was no problem. The servants in the residence were used to serving people. Wasn't going to the shop to entertain those madams and young ladies just working in another place. But now that she heard what Madame Dai said, Shuang could not help but think more, especially with Su Qing as a reference. For example, Su Qing was good-looking, Su Qing was diligent in her work, Su Qing spoke sweetly, Su Qing was not afraid of hardship or fatigue. Shuang immediately had a headache. It was not easy to find someone. Just based on looks alone, she had already eliminated the 2 people recommended by the mammy yesterday from her mind. Madame Dai frowned slightly. Her head hurt even more badly because she did not only have to hire the waiters and kitchen staff. She was also the one who chose the shopkeeper. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 694. Departure. News. The shopkeeper was different from the shop assistant. She had to be knowledgeable and capable. When she saw those madams and young ladies, she had to be neither servile nor overbearing. In this huge prefectural city, madam and madam had conflicts. Young miss and young miss disliked each other a lot. If they happened to meet in the shop, as the shopkeeper, she had to at least have the ability to mediate. At the same time, she had to have management skills, literacy, and etiquette. Most importantly, unlike the male shopkeepers in ordinary shops, there were too few experienced female shopkeepers. At the very least, there was none in the shops under Madame De's own name. Sigh, my head hurts. Yundong also knew that the two of them were having a headache. After all, she had deliberately brought Qing over today. She more or less understood what the criteria for workers were for Madame Dai and Shuang. It was obvious that they would definitely choose someone close to them. Even Yundong herself would subconsciously choose someone she had a good relationship with. However, although the people close to him were trustworthy, it still depended on whether they were suitable. Yundong had taken a share of this shop. If she wanted to do it, she had to do it well. She believed that Qing's trip today would be very effective. Yundong sent Qing to the entrance of her alley before bringing Tong Shueitao home. When she entered, Shao Qingyuan happened to be at home. At this moment, he was sitting in the central room and standing in front of Zhou, as if he was talking to him. When Yundong approached, Zhou finished speaking. However, Shao Qingyuan frowned slightly. Yundong was puzzled. What's wrong? What happened? When Shao Qingyuan saw her, his expression instantly improved. He only said, "There's something going on at the manor. I'm afraid I'll have to go over tomorrow, and will only be back in a few days." Manor? Yundong remembered that Shao Qingyuan had bought a manor not far from the Shuang prefecture. Although it was not very big, the title deed was given to her. It seemed that ever since Shao Qingyuan bought this manor, he had never gone there again. What happened? Is it very troublesome? Shao Qingyuan shook his head. It's not troublesome. It's just that there are some things that I need to confirm personally. I originally wanted to bring you along to take a look when you're done here. In any case, it's not far from the Shuang prefecture. There are plenty of opportunities. Shao Qingyuan nodded. He'll leave tomorrow morning. As he spoke, he glanced at Tong Shueitao and Zhou. Before Tong Shueitao could react, Zhou cleverly pulled her out. There was no one in the central room. Shao Qingyuan held Yundong's hand and said in a low voice, "He'll be back in 2 days at most. You have a lot of things to do, but you have to take care of your health. Don't tire yourself out." Yundong felt her hand being wrapped by his broad and warm hand, and her entire body became warm. She pursed her lips. "I know." After a pause, she looked up and said seriously, "If you encounter anything troublesome, you must tell me." Shao Qingyuan smiled. "Yes, I've always listened to you." Yundong glared at him. The next morning, Shao Qingyuan indeed left the Shuang prefecture with Zhou. Yundong woke up early and did not see him. She sighed and brought Qing to the shop. Today, Madame Dai would bring the chef for the kitchen. Yundong had to teach them how to make pearl milk tea. The kitchen was filled with people who had signed a death contract with Madame Dai. They would not easily leak the formula. Yundong taught them very carefully. She was really tired after a whole day. However, when she went to Gus' shop to patrol, as usual at night, Tong Ping and Chun Jinbao, who came to deliver the goods for the second time, brought her a message. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 695. Inventory Emergency. The goods sold too quickly in the prefecture capital. There is still a lot of stock in the workshop, but now, more than half of them are gone. Tong Ping showed the inventory list to Yundong. Ever since the shop opened in the prefectural city, the workshop has not rested, but the stock in the warehouse is still decreasing. In other words, they were short of manpower. Yundong also knew that there were many rich people in the prefecture capital. Their purchasing power was too shocking. Although she had limited their purchases, it was useless. There were even people who protested. Gu Yundong had originally planned to go back and start expanding the workshop after the shop was opened. Unexpectedly, Mr. Dai and Shuang suddenly wanted to open a milk tea shop on a whim. However, these two people did not know much about this aspect, so she had more responsibilities. She was occupied and delayed. However, she had already completed all the things she needed to do in the past 2 days. The renovation of the shop, the selection of the shop assistants, and other trivia could be done by Madame Dai. It was indeed time for her to go back to Yongfu village to take a look. Gu Yundong accepted the list and expressed that she knew what to do. She said to Tong Ping, "I'll go back as soon as possible. Tell Tong and to recruit a group of people first. I'll screen them when I get back." Last time, it was Tong and who went through the first round of the interview first. At that time, he was still very nervous. This time, he should be much more proficient. Gu Yundong intended for him to be fully in charge of the workshop in the future. Since she was not around this time, it was a good opportunity for him to gain experience. Tong Ping immediately agreed. They did not stay in the prefectural city that day. As they had an appointment with someone to purchase the fruits, they left the Shuang prefecture before the city gate closed. Since Gu Yundong was planning to go back, she had to settle many things first. Su Qing had been by her side for 2 days. Gu Yundong was no longer worried about her. She only asked her to go to the shop more often after she left. Occasionally, the girl could also go to Gus to see how her brother treated customers as a shop assistant. It was always beneficial for her to read and learn more. It was no longer a problem for Feng Daneng with the blueprints. Other than the 2 carpenters who followed him, he also hired a few more people. They were people he had met in the prefectural city previously. They had a good relationship and were skilled. Gus had also stabilized. With the deterrence on the first day of business, basically no one dared to come and find trouble. On the other hand, the next day, she went to look for Madame Dai and Shuang to say goodbye. The 2 of them were very reluctant. They had not even given their shop a name, and the helpers they had chosen had not been introduced to Gu Yundong. The cook skills were not very good, and they felt that there were still many questions that they had yet to figure out. Now that Gu Yundong was leaving, they felt inexplicably flustered. Gu Yundong's face darkened. She thought to herself that returning to Yongfu village at this time was indeed the right decision. If she continued to stay here, she would probably have to decide everything in the shop. Didn't they say that they would pay money and do everything? Gu Yundong felt that it was necessary for her to nurture their ability to be independent. If this continued, they would become more and more dependent on her. Didn't they know that she was still a child? Hence, she said decisively, "If there's anything, you can discuss it. As for anything that needs 3 people to decide, you can write to me. Don't worry, they'll definitely come back when the shop opens." Madame Dai and Shuang had no choice but to nod and let her go back. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. In the end, she bid farewell to her parents and sister. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 696. Clothes-making vacation. Gu Dajiang was fine. Yongfu village wasn't far from the Shuang prefecture, so it was easy for them to meet. But Madame Yang and Gu Yunka did not quite understand. They remembered that the last time they parted ways with Big Sister, they did not see each other for several months. This time, when they heard that she was leaving, the 2 of them pouted and hugged her, unwilling to let go. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They'll come to the prefecture capital in half a month at most. It's not like we'll be apart for long. Be good. Gu Dajiang also said there's no need for half a month. In a few days, it will be time for the clothes-making vacation. We'll bring you back. When the time comes, we'll bring Yunshu and Yuanji to the prefectural city to take a look. Clothes-making vacation? Not only were Madame Yang and Gu Yunka confused, but even Gu Yundong was confused. It was rare for Gu Dajiang to see her reveal such a confused expression. He couldn't help but rub her head and explain, in addition to the 1-day leave every 10 days, The academy also has farming leave every May, as well as clothing leave. It's usually after mid-September. Farming leave and clothing leave are both a month. Yundong was enlightened. It turned out that there was winter and summer vacation at this time. Dajiang said, however, the holidays aren't long. Students whose homes are too far away usually won't go back. Our family is close, and the round trip isn't long. It's not a problem for us to return to the village. However, I originally thought that since I had just entered the school, I needed to study harder in the academy. They'll just take the clothes-making vacation for 10 days. In any case, Shu and Yuanji can come over during the holidays. Our family can still reunite. Now that I think about it, it's not enough. After all, not all of Yundong's matters were in the prefectural city. Yundong understood. Yundong would not give any more opinions on matters related to studies. Anyway, her father knew what he was doing, and he could decide how much rest he wanted. She just turned around and said to Madame Yang and Yunke, "You heard him. It's just a few days later. When the time comes, not only will you be able to see me, but you will also be able to see Yunshu and Yuanji." Only then did Madame Yang and Yunke let go of her, but they had already begun to count the days seriously. After everything was settled, Yundong took Tong Shuitao and drove the carriage towards the city gate. Tong Shuitao pulled the reins and asked, "Miss, since we're going to meet in a few days, why don't we just bring Madam and second Miss back to Yongfu Village?" Yundong leaned against the wall of the carriage and looked at the bustling crowd at the city gate. Many people were queuing up to leave the city with carrying poles and things. Upon hearing this, she smiled and said, "Didn't you see my father's gaze? It's as if I'm an evil person who broke up Mother and Kiki. I can't afford to offend him. It's better to let Father take care of them himself." Perhaps because he had been separated from his family for so long last year, Dajiang especially cherished the time he had with his family. Yundong had long discovered this. Every day, when her father came back from school, he would first confirm that his wife and daughter were around before he heaved a sigh of relief. He might have thought that their reunion was a dream. If he was not careful, he would wake up from this dream and his family would disappear. This situation would probably continue for a while before her father slowly adapted. Tong Shuitao did not really understand this psychological problem. In any case, she would listen to Mississippi. The carriage left the city gate. Seeing that the road ahead was wider, Tong Shuitao was about to speed up. Unexpectedly, just as the reins were raised and before she could shake them, she heard Yundong suddenly say, "Wait." Tong Shuitao was puzzled. "What's wrong, miss? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 697. Evil Dogs. Stay away. Yundong lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. She asked, "Do you know the location of the manor that Brother Shao bought?" "I know." She had already asked her father about this. Yundong paused and said, "Let's go to the manor to take a look." Tong Shuitao was puzzled, but her hands deftly turned the horse and drove in the direction of the manor. Yundong recalled what Shao Qingyuan had said before he left. There seemed to be something going on in the manor. She was curious and decided to take a look. Tong Shuitao happened to know the location. In any case, she was not in a hurry to return to Yongfu Village. She was actually very curious. Her father had been to the manor, but she had never been there. This was the betrothal gift that the future husband would give to his wife. As the young miss, she naturally had to announce her identity. Thinking of this, Tong Shuitao was slightly excited, and the speed of the carriage increased. Yundong, who was admiring the scenery outside, the manor was indeed not far away. Yundong saw the things planted in the fields from a distance. Shao Qingyuan had said that a portion of the land was originally used to grow fruits. Later on, after he bought it, it just so happened that after the farming season, the fields that planted food had already harvested. He instructed them not to plant food, but to plant fruit trees and medicinal herbs. Many tenants were unwilling, But Shao Qingyuan had always been decisive. If they didn't agree, he wouldn't rent it to these tenants. Originally, when the farmstead changed owners, the previous contract between the tenants and the original owners had already been broken. Even if Shao Qingyuan replaced all of them, no one would dare to say anything. Only then did the tenants not dare to say anything. Later on, when they heard Shao Qingyuan say that he would buy all the fruits and herbs they planted and that the price was not low, they were relieved and began to plant them. Yundong looked at the fields and saw all kinds of fruit trees. Some fruit trees must have been transplanted from other places. The trunks were tall. Some fruit trees were originally planted here, and they were already filled with fruits. Some of them had just been planted, and only tree saplings that were half the height of a person appeared. However, it could be seen that they were all well taken care of. Most of these fruit trees were in the periphery, and the medicinal herbs were inside. It seemed that they were surrounded and protected by these fruit trees. There was a fence around the fruit trees, which was similar to the orchard in Yongfu village. The carriage got closer and closer. Just as they were about to see the shadow of the manor, a series of barks suddenly entered their ears. Tong Shuitao was shocked. She instinctively pulled the reins tightly, and the carriage suddenly stopped. In the blink of an eye, the barking of the dog was right in front of him. What made people's hearts skip a beat was the sound of barking continued. It was obvious that it was not one dog. Sure enough, in the next moment, 3 tall and fierce dogs rushed out from 3 directions and surrounded the carriage. Tong Shuitao, F***CK, this dog even knew how to outflank? The 3 dogs did not approach her either. They stood 2 meters away from the carriage and looked at them covetously, but their eyes were fierce and ready to attack. It was as if as long as Tong Shuitao made any movement, they would pounce forward in the next moment and tear her into pieces. Fortunately, Tong Shuitao was strong and good at martial arts. She had also entered the mountains and met wild boars before. She was not afraid of dogs. She even glared at them one by one and sneered. "Evil dogs, stay away. Otherwise, I won't be polite. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 698. They're very cute. She had just finished speaking when Yundong slapped the back of her head. What evil dogs? The 3 dogs are clearly guarding this orchard loyally. They're loyal. Don't scare them. I scare them? Miss, did you get the wrong person? Not only her, but a young man who had just run over from behind almost fell to the ground when he heard this. Yundong heard the commotion and looked up to the side. He saw a 20-year-old youth walking over with sweat all over his face. The 3 dogs should be under his control. After he came over, they quieted down and stopped barking fiercely. The young man walked to the front of the carriage and looked up at them. He asked, "May I ask who you are? What are you doing here?" Yundong was still thinking about how to introduce herself when she heard Tong Shuitao jump down from the carriage and say, "My miss is the new master of this manor. Naturally, she's here to inspect the manor." Yundong was speechless. Wasn't this introduction a little shameless? The young man was speechless. Should he let the dogs bite them? He had heard of people who came to find trouble and pretend to be acquaintances, but he had never seen anyone directly come to pretend to be his master. The 2 women probably didn't know that the boss happened to come to the manor yesterday, right? Seeing that the young man was frowning and seemed to be about to release the dogs to bite someone, Yundong explained more clearly. "Shao Qingyuan is at the farm, right? We're here to look for him." Only then did the expression on the young man's face relax. She knows the new boss? Then she shouldn't be here to do bad things. "Who are you people?" "My name is Yundong." And before she could finish speaking, the young man's eyes lit up. "You're Madame Dong? You know me?" The young man nodded repeatedly. "No, I don't." "Then why are you nodding?" "But the boss said that he has a fianca copyright with the surname Gu." Tong Shuitao secretly whispered into Yundong's ear, "Miss, your future husband is afraid that you will run away. You haven't even come to the manor yet, but he introduced you to the people here." There was no need for her to say anything. Gu Yundong's heart was warm. She looked at the young man. Shao Qingyuan came to the manor yesterday, right? Can I go meet him now? Of course. The young man was even more certain of her identity when he saw that she knew about the boss visit yesterday. He called out to the 3 fierce dogs and told them to continue guarding. Then, he came over to hold the reins of the carriage and led Gu Yundong inside. As he walked, he introduced Big Black, and the others are actually very obedient and intelligent. With them guarding the orchard here, no one dares to come. Chapter 699. Master is not here. Gu Yundong jumped down from the carriage and threw the small piece of silver to him. Take it. This is compensation for their hard work. As she spoke, she asked Tong Shueitao to knock on the door. The young man felt that the silver was a little hot in his hand. He wanted to refuse, but footsteps were already coming from the manor. The young man thought for a moment and did not refuse. He put away the silver. Soon, the door of the manor was opened and a woman in her 30s came out. She was stunned when she saw Gu Yundong standing outside. The young man reacted quickly and hurriedly introduced, Aunt Wan, this is Miss Gu, the boss Fianca copyright E. Then, she said to Gu Yundong, Aunt Wan is the housekeeper in charge of the manor. When Madame Wan heard this, she was stunned on the spot. She looked at Gu Yundong, sizing her up. She fell silent, and the atmosphere instantly became a little stiff. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly. Seeing this, the young man hurriedly called out to her, Aunt Wan. Madame Wan suddenly came back to her senses. She hurriedly squeezed out a smile and moved aside. So it's Miss Gu. My bad. I didn't react for a moment. Miss, please come in. Gu Yundong nodded and stepped through the door. The young man behind her said, Miss Gu, it'll get going. Gu Yundong did not ask him to stay. She nodded, and the young man led the carriage to the shed. He tied the rope, fed the horse, and ran away quickly. Tong Shueitao leaned close to Gu Yundong's ear and whispered, This person seems to be stupid. He doesn't even know how to perform well in front of this rare opportunity. He didn't even say his name. Gu Yundong glanced at her. Little Tao, you actually have the cheek to say that others are stupid? If you want to know his name, we can ask someone else. Madame Wan led the way and did not hear their conversation. Hence, Tong Shueitao took a few steps forward and asked, Aunt Wan, what was the name of that young man just now? Aunt Wan hurriedly said, That's Yuan Cheng from the Yuan family. The Yuan family is a tenant in the manor. Yuan Cheng has been naughty since he was young. He raised a few dogs that are especially fierce, so we don't dare to approach them. Master said that those dogs are perfect to protect the orchard and gave the Yuan family a lot of money to take good care of those dogs. Yuan Cheng? Tong Shueitao got the information she wanted and returned to Gu Yundong's side. When the 3 of them entered the courtyard, Gu Yundong took a closer look at the manor. Although Shao Qingyuan said that the farmstead was small, it was still much bigger than her house in Yongfu village. The so-called small was only relative to those big farmsteads. They walked inside. When they were about to reach the central room, Madame Wan raised her voice and shouted, Hubby, Hubby, Miss Gu is here. Not long after she finished speaking, footsteps came from ahead. Gu Yundong looked up and saw a tall but thin man coming out of the room. The man walked over quickly. When he heard Madame Wan's introduction, his expression immediately became more respectful. So it's Miss Gu. I didn't go out to welcome you in time. Please forgive me. This should be the head of the manor, Wang. Shao Qingyuan had said that when he bought this manor, the previous owner had requested him to buy it with the Shui family. Gu Yundong sized him up and asked, I'm here to look for Brother Shao. Where is he? Wang hurriedly replied, Master just arrived at the manor yesterday and brought people out. Out? Do you know where he went? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 700. Something's wrong with Madame Wan. Wang said, Master went to the Zhou village next door to look for someone yesterday. As he spoke, he invited Gu Yundong into the central room. Then, He turned his head and urged Madame Wan, "Why aren't you pouring tea?" After Madame Wan left, Gu Yundong asked, "Why did he go to the Jiao village? Did he encounter any trouble?" Shuang Wang was a little hesitant, as if he was wondering if he should say something. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. "If you can't say, then forget it." "No." In the end, Shuang Wang still replied, "Actually, a self-taught doctor passed by the manor 2 days ago to stay. When I was chatting with him, I heard him say that he had a lot of rare medicinal herbs on hand. Master had previously instructed people to keep an eye on by Musi. If there was any news, they would immediately report it to him. Therefore, I asked if there was such a medicine. To my surprise, the self-taught doctor really did have it. I immediately sent a letter to Master. Because a portion of the land on the farm had been rented to plant medicinal herbs, Shuang Wang had also gotten to know a few herbs. By Musi, in particular, had been requested by his master. He had also seen the Bai Musi that the self-taught doctor had taken out. It really looked like that, but he was not sure, so he quickly reported it to his master. Bai Musi? Gu Yundong was stunned. So Shao Qingyuan said that there was an urgent matter because he had received news about Bai Musi. Was he here to confirm if Bai Musi was real or fake? This person was really. Shuang Wang saw that she did not speak, and he felt a little uneasy. Could it be that he should not have said these things? However, his master had said long ago that this manor would belong to Miss Gu in the future, including their Shui family. Seriously speaking, Miss Gu was his master, so he naturally could not hide it. Gu Yundong suppressed the complicated emotions in her heart and asked, "Is the self-taught doctor in the Jiao village now?" Yes, the doctor traveled everywhere to treat patients. He waited in the manor for 2 days and couldn't wait anymore, so he went to the Jiao village. After Master came, he quickly went to the Jiao village. As she spoke, Madame Wan had already brought in tea. Gu Yundong asked Shuang Wang, "Which direction is the Jiao village?" "Miss, are you going to look for Master?" "Yeah." As Gu Yundong spoke, she saw from the corner of her eye that Madame Wan's hand, which was holding the tea, paused for a moment. Then, she acted as if nothing had happened. Shuang Wang did not see it. He only nodded and said, "All right, miss, rest for a while and have some tea. They'll feed the horses some grass. We'll set off in a while." Seeing Gu Yundong nod in agreement, Shuang Wang left the central room. Madame Wan smiled at Gu Yundong and left. As soon as the two of them left, Tong Shuitao whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, "Miss, there's something wrong with that Madame Wan. When she saw us, her eyes were flickering. It seems like she's hiding something from us." Gu Yundong looked at her in surprise. "Not bad. You can even tell that something is wrong with Madame Wan." Tong Shuitao was slightly smug. "After all, I've been by Miss' side for so long. I have to improve." "All right, since you think there's something wrong with the Wan family, follow them and take a look." Tong Shuitao immediately became excited. "Yes, Mississippi. Be careful. Don't let anyone find out." Tong Shuitao clenched her fists. "Miss, don't worry. I've learned martial arts for so long. I have this ability to eavesdrop." It was as if eavesdropping was a glorious thing. Gu Yundong was very upset. She waved her hand and asked her to leave quickly. Tong Shuitao chuckled, but her footsteps were very light as she followed Madame Wan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 701. Water in your brain, Madame. Wan came out of the central room and quickly caught up with Shuang Wang. After turning a corner, she finally couldn't take it anymore. She pulled Shuang Wang and said with a complaining tone, "Why did you bring her to look for Master?" Tong Shuitao happened to hear this, and her eyes flickered slightly, as if she was about to hear a big secret. Shuang Wang frowned and said in a low voice, "Miss is Master's fiancée. If she wants to see Master, we naturally have to bring her along. What's wrong with that?" But Madame Wan stammered, as if she wanted to say something, but she looked troubled. A bad premonition flashed across Shuang Wang's mind. He looked at her abruptly. Are you hiding something from me? No, no. Wang had been married to her for many years. Seeing her like this, how could he believe her? His tone immediately became heavier. Tell me, what are you hiding from me? Madame Wang was a little afraid of him. Seeing his dark expression, she couldn't help but shrink her neck and say softly, Didn't Qingyuan like Master? Early this morning, she saw that Master hadn't returned, so she went to the Zhou village. What if that girl goes there too? Wouldn't they bump into each other? Her voice was soft, and Tong Shuitao finally heard it clearly. She immediately widened her eyes and covered her mouth to prevent herself from exclaiming. Wang widened his eyes and looked at Madame Wang, who was shrinking her neck in guilt. His expression was especially ugly. Yu, are you trying to anger me to death? I told you last time that Master has a fiancée. Moreover, anyone with a discerning eye can tell that he values Miss Gu very much. I asked Qingyuan to put away her thoughts. In the end, not only did she not give up, but you also helped her hide it from me. Is there water in your brain? Madame Wang was a little afraid of him, but she was still a little unconvinced. You set yourself. She's just a fiancée. Moreover, why are you so sure that Master values that Miss Gu? Our Qingyuan is so beautiful. No one within a 5-kilometer radius is more beautiful than her. Moreover, Qingyuan doesn't have to be Master's wife. Being a concubine is Qingyuan's blessing. Shut up. Wang could not stand it anymore. His fingers trembled as he pointed at her, as expected of a woman's opinion. Let me tell you, if you continue to allow Qingyuan to get close to Master, we won't be able to live. It's not as serious as you say. Wang saw that she did not know what was good for her, and the veins on his forehead were about to explode. As expected, you've stayed in the manor for too long. You're so stupid that you can't even differentiate between master and servant. With that, he didn't look at Madame Wang again and just walked forward even faster. Madame Wang was stunned for a moment. She quickly took a few steps forward and asked, Where are you going? Send Miss to the Zhou village and bring Qingyuan back. You search for a good family the next few days. He'll go to Master and ask for his grace to marry Qingyuan off as soon as possible. Madame Wang was shocked. Do you have to do this? It's for our family. Tong Shuitao no longer listened. She turned around and walked back into the central room. Yundong was standing in the courtyard and looking at a jujube tree in front of her. The jujubes on the tree had already ripened. She pulled some slightly and plucked a large bunch. She casually wiped them with her clothes and took a few bites. Yes, they were quite sweet. When she heard the news, she became a little frustrated. Perhaps Shao Qingyuan's reputation in Yongfu village was not good, so the women in Yongfu village and even the nearby villages did not dare to approach him. Most of them ran away when they saw him. So much so that Yundong almost forgot that Shao Qingyuan was also a very handsome man. He was a person who made women blush and their hearts beat faster. After leaving Yongfu village, there would probably be many women who did not understand Shao Qingyuan's personality and wanted to pounce on him. Yundong had always been busy. In addition, Shao Qingyuan had always put her first, giving her a sense of security. She had never thought that a woman would try to steal him away. This Qin was indeed bold. Chapter 703 Came out of reputation, the carriage traveled quickly and soon arrived at the entrance of the Zhou family village. Wang asked the villagers where the self-taught doctor lived. Sure enough, someone pointed at the village chief's house and said, Over there. Do you see that big house? He's been staying there for the past 2 days. As he spoke, the villager added, You're also here to see that doctor? That's unfortunate. Dr. Liu happened to enter the mountain to pick herbs. He went yesterday. I don't know if he can come back today. Pick herbs? Yundong looked at the mountain not far away. This mountain was not as big as Yongfu village, but it was not small either. But it didn't matter. She wasn't here to look for a doctor. Hence, Wang changed the question. Then do you know that a young master surnamed Shao came here yesterday? Oh, you mean young master Shao? I know him. The villager nodded. He's also at the village chief's house. He should still be there. Thank you. Wang thanked him and drove the carriage towards the big house pointed out by the villagers. However, the road in the Zhou village was not easy to ride on. The path was very narrow, and the carriage could not pass through. The three of them could only get out of the carriage and tie it to the door of a farmer's house. They asked someone to help keep an eye on it before walking towards the village chief's house. After taking a few steps, Wang suddenly stopped in his tracks and pointed in the direction of the village chief's door in surprise. Miss, that's Dr. Liu. Yundong looked up and saw a middle-aged man carrying a medicine basket slowly walking towards the village chief's courtyard. It seemed that they had come at the right time. Dr. Liu had just returned. Moreover, Dr. Liu seemed to be quite popular in the Zhou village. As soon as he entered the courtyard, a few villagers followed him. She even shouted, "Dr. Liu, you're finally back. Have you collected all the medicine?" "Dr. Liu, my grandson's cough is getting worse. Did you find the herb you mentioned yesterday?" "Dr. Liu, I felt a little dizzy just now. Take my pulse. Am I sick?" "Dr. Liu." A few people entered the courtyard, and the village chief's house instantly became lively. Yundong frowned. Wang, who was beside her, said, "There's no physician in the Zhou village. This is the countryside. Even if someone has a minor illness, they don't take it seriously. Dr. Liu came to treat everyone. I heard that he doesn't charge medical fees and only takes some medicinal herbs as a token. So everyone who's sick or not has come and let him take a look." Yundong was a little surprised. There was no consultation fee. "Let's go and take a look." Yundong took the lead and walked towards the small courtyard. Wang and Tong Shuitao hurriedly followed. They were a step too late. There were already many people in the courtyard. A young man was talking to everyone. "I know everyone is anxious, but young Master Shao has been waiting here for the entire day. First come, first serve, right? When young Master Shao and Dr. Liu are done talking, Dr. Liu will come out and treat everyone immediately." Calm down, calm down." A villager asked curiously, "Jiao Lao-san, is this young Master Shao also here to see a doctor? Isn't he a young master? He doesn't look like he lacks money. Why don't you go to the city to see those doctors?" This means that our Dr. Liu's medical skills are good. So this young Master Shao came because of his reputation. Yes, he came because of the doctor's reputation. Unexpectedly, as soon as the two villagers finished speaking, a furious voice suddenly came from inside. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 704. This herb is fake. Nonsense. This is simply nonsense. His voice was a little loud and stern, accompanied by the sound of slamming the table. The villagers who were chatting in the courtyard fell silent for a moment. After a while, someone whispered, "This sounds like Dr. Liu's voice. What's wrong? What happened?" Jiao Laosan was also stunned for a moment. He was the third son of the village chief and was afraid that something would happen inside. He quickly turned around and entered the house. The other villagers looked at each other. After a pause, they squeezed to the door. Yundong also walked forward, but she did not move into the crowd. She looked around and walked to the window beside her. She looked in through the open window. There were a few people sitting in the central room. One of them was Dr. Liu, whom he had seen earlier. At this moment, his face was red and his eyes were wide open. The beard on his chin trembled, and he looked very angry. There was also a man in his 40s in the central room. He looked a little like Jiao Lao-san. He should be the village chief of the Zhou village. Then, Shao Qingyuan sat on the chair and drank tea calmly. He was exceptionally calm in the face of Dr. Liu's anger. "The thing you took out is indeed not by Musi. This herb is fake." As he spoke, he glanced at a box on the table. The box should contain the so-called by Musi. Yundong glanced at it and felt that it was quite similar to the portrait in the book Dr. Song had given her. Dr. Liu sneered and closed the box. "I don't know which family's young master you are, but you had nothing better to do that you came to make fun of me. This is indeed an authentic by Musi. A while ago, I even sold 2 stocks. The buyers are rich families and have doctors in their residences. If it's fake, the doctors would have been able to identify it. They would have come to find trouble with me long ago." As he spoke, he sized up Shao Qingyuan, and the sarcasm in his voice intensified. "You're not even a doctor, yet you're pretending to know everything. This will only make you look ignorant." The villagers outside also felt that it made sense. A villager who had let Dr. Lu treat him shouted, that's right. You're not a doctor. Do you know how precious this herb is? Is this by Musi too expensive? If you can't afford it, you cannot belittle Dr. Lu here. He's definitely trying to lower the price. Dr. Lu, don't fall for it. At most, you won't sell it. There will always be people who know their stuff. When Dr. Lu heard this, he nodded and even turned around to cup his hands at everyone. "Thank you, everyone, for speaking up for me." Then, he turned to look at Shao Qingyuan. "I'm not selling by Musi anymore. You can leave." Zhou, who was standing behind Shao Qingyuan, sneered. "You're the shameless person who doesn't know anything and earned black-hearted money by tricking people. Our young master knows much more than you do." A villager immediately said, "Dr. Lu didn't earn black-hearted money. He didn't even charge consultation fees. Yeah, he didn't even take a dime." Shao Qingyuan looked up and glanced at the villager who was speaking at the door. He nodded. He did not charge the consultation fee. He just charged some medicinal herbs. Everyone frowned, not understanding what he meant. Zhou had been by Shao Qingyuan's side for so long, so he naturally understood at once and immediately laughed out loud. Someone felt goosebumps from his laughter and asked sternly, "What are you laughing at? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 705. Shao Qingyuan says more. Zhou sighed and said coldly, "I'm laughing at how you're being played by others. They don't charge consultation fees, but you have to pay for medicine fees. These medicinal herbs aren't cheap at all. Moreover, I heard that all the villagers Dr. Lu treated are sick without exception. This is really too coincidental. Everyone who looks for him has to spend money to buy medicine. Is there a difference between this and paying consultation fees?" The villagers were stunned when they heard that. Village Chief Zhou, who had been silent, suddenly looked at Dr. Lu. Yes, it was said to be a free consultation, but why was it so coincidental that everyone was more or less sick and in pain? Dr. Lu was a little flustered at that moment. He glared fiercely at Zhou and explained, "The villagers came to see a doctor naturally because they felt uncomfortable. It's normal for them to be sick and in pain. I accepted the money for the medicinal herbs, but the price was not high. It's much cheaper than the herbs in the medicine shop in the prefecture capital. If you don't believe me, feel free to go to the shop and ask for the price of the medicinal herbs. You will naturally know if I'm being kind or black-hearted." Everyone was a little hesitant by his self-righteous appearance. Both of them seemed to have a point. Shao Qingyuan couldn't be bothered to listen to his excuses anymore. Whether Dr. Lu was lying and scamming money here or the villagers didn't believe him, it had nothing to do with him. He had no obligation to prove his point to these fence-sitters. He had only come to buy Musi. Since he had confirmed that it was not the case, he planned to leave. However, just as Shao Qingyuan stood up, the village chief of the Zhao village stood up and said, "Young Master Shao, please wait." He walked up to Shao Qingyuan and looked at him sincerely. "Can you make yourself clear?" Shao Qingyuan looked at him. This village chief was not a bad person. Seeing that he had received a lot of care from the village chief yesterday, he still said a few more words. "The Musi I'm buying has silver roots and purple branches and leaves. It's about 6 inches long and has 5 leaves. It's an extremely rare herb. But Dr. Liu's Musi has white roots with a few thin patterns. Although it also has 5 leaves, their colors are dim. Also, he claimed that he sold 2 stocks a couple of days ago, which is ridiculous. If Musi were so easy to find, its price wouldn't have been so high, and I wouldn't have to spend so much time searching for it." When everyone heard this, they could not help but look at the box containing the herbs. Dr. Liu's face turned pale as he hugged the box tighter. Chapter 706. The girl in front. Dr. Liu's expression changed drastically. He subconsciously reached out to hug the medicine basket. In this way, everyone understood. Their expressions changed drastically, and they glared at him angrily. They were so angry that their bodies were trembling. "You shameless thing, you actually used this medicinal herb to deceive us. No wonder my grandson hasn't recovered after coughing for 2 days. You heartless thing, you want to kill us. This is treatment, you quack. If anyone's illness is seriously delayed by you, you'll be the murderer. Bring him to the officials, village chief. This kind of black-hearted thing must be sent to the officials. Yes, he must have tricked other villages too. I don't know how many people around here have been persecuted by him. Maybe the herbs he sells have already killed people." The more Dr. Liu listened, the paler his face became, and his hands and feet slowly turned cold. He still wanted to defend himself, but facing the indignant villagers, he could not find any excuse. Soon, a villager went forward to pull him and snatch the medicine basket from his arms. "It's evidence that he's harming people. Come, let's go see the officials." Dr. Liu staggered a few steps from being pulled by a few people. Even his wrist was bleeding from a woman's nails. Hearing that the villagers insisted on sending him to the officials, the panic in Dr. Liu's heart grew. Gradually, hatred spread, and he looked at Shao Qingyuan with resentment. Shao Qingyuan raised his eyebrows. Dr. Liu suddenly broke free from the villager's grip. Then, she quickly rushed towards Shao Qingyuan. "It's all your fault. It's all your fault. You had to interfere." Shao Qingyuan didn't care about him at all. Seeing him rush forward, a figure suddenly blocked in front of him and pushed Dr. Liu away. "You're the one who plotted against us for money, yet you're blaming others for exposing you. You're simply shameless." A crisp voice sounded in the room, attracting everyone's attention, including Gu Yundong, who was standing behind the window sill outside. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw this woman bravely standing in front of Shao Qingyuan as if she wanted to protect him, but she was trembling and trying her best to suppress her fear. She turned around and glanced at Shuang. Who is she? Shuang felt that Miss Gu seemed to have seen through something and understood everything. His forehead could not help but break out in cold sweat. He laughed dryly and hurriedly said, "She's my daughter. Her name is Xueqin." After that, she explained, "This morning I was a little worried that Master hadn't returned to the manor, so I asked Qiner to come over and see what had happened." As soon as he finished speaking, Shuang wanted to slap himself. It would have been better if he hadn't explained, but once he did, he felt like he was hiding something. Gu Yundong replied with a meaningful, "Oh," and continued to look into the house. Shao Qingyuan didn't seem to be satisfied with this woman who suddenly stood in front of him. He frowned slightly and looked at Zhou. The latter touched his nose and said softly, "Young master, this." Miss Xue was standing in front of me. He also wanted to stand in front of young master. Wasn't it because his geographical location didn't allow it? He let Xueqin beat him to it. Xueqin's back was facing them, so she naturally didn't see their exchange of glances. She only glared at Dr. Liu, who had been pushed to the ground by her, and said, "Our young master is trying to seek justice from the bottom of his heart. He didn't let you harm so many people, but you still bite back and say that my young master is nosy? Are we going to let a poisonous snake like you go around harming people? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 707. Why are you here? Yes, this girl is right. The villagers were united against a common enemy and were still a little afraid. Young Master Shao had exposed his scheme and saved the entire Jiao village. In the end, there were so many of them, and Dr. Liu had almost hurt young Master Shao. It was unbearable. Therefore, village chief Jiao quickly got a few tall men to tie up Dr. Liu and send him to the government. Dr. Liu was still struggling. At this moment, he regretted not taking out the medicinal hoe he had used to dig for herbs in the medicine basket. Otherwise, he would have been able to take this opportunity to escape. Now, he had no power to retaliate. Other than cursing loudly with hatred in his eyes, all his struggles were useless. Soon he was pulled out. Village Chief Zhou followed him out. Zhao Laosan originally wanted to stay and entertain Shao Qingyuan. However, when he looked up, he saw the girl standing beside Shao Qingyuan with a shy expression. He immediately understood. Wasn't there a saying that a gentleman should not be a third wheel? He wouldn't stand in their way and stop them from talking. Therefore, Zhao Laosan gave Xueqin an encouraging look. Although the latter did not see it, he still went out with a smile. Before leaving, he even glanced at Zhou, but Zhou did not react at all. Zhao Laosan sighed. This man was really tactless. If he ruined his master's plans, he would probably not be able to climb up in the future. He shook his head and went out. Seeing that there were no outsiders in the room, Xueqin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She turned around shyly and asked with concern, "Young master, are you all right? Dr. Liu didn't hit you just now, right? I was so frightened just now. I thought he had a knife in his hand. Fortunately, there was nothing." Otherwise, before she could finish speaking, Shao Qingyuan suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the windowsill. There were only villagers outside just now, so Shao Qingyuan didn't pay special attention. Now that the villagers in the courtyard had left, Yundong and the others, who were standing by the window, appeared especially out of place. Shao Qingyuan turned around and met a familiar pair of smiling eyes. His pupils constricted, and the originally cold expression on his face instantly softened. His joy was obvious, and the indulgence in his eyes seemed to overflow. "What are you doing here?" His voice was gentle, and Xueqin, who had her head lowered, did not notice his gaze. However, she was very happy in her heart and thought that he was talking to her. She quickly replied, "I saw that you had not returned all night and was a little worried, so I came to see if something had happened." In fact, Xueqin had come over early in the morning and had long wanted to express her concern. However, she never had the chance to talk to him. After she came to the Zhao village and found him, she didn't have a chance to talk to him. Not only was Zhou by his side, but the village chief of the Zhao village was also in front of her. Who knew that Dr. Liu suddenly wanted to attack young master just now, and she wouldn't block it? Instead, young master noticed him and even was so gentle. At this moment, Xueqin was actually a little grateful to the black-hearted Dr. Liu for creating such a good opportunity for her and letting young master see her intentions. Shao Qingyuan said, "Come here." Xueqin lowered her head, feeling even more embarrassed. Her heart was beating exceptionally fast. She hummed softly and walked towards Shao Qingyuan. However, she had just taken a step when she was suddenly pushed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 708. Yundong's Reward. Xueqin staggered back 2 steps. When she looked up, she realized that the person who pushed her was Zhou. She asked in shock, "What are you doing?" Zhou shouted, "He's not talking to you. Go away." This time, he reacted fast enough. Young master shouldn't glare at him. Xueqin was stunned for a moment before looking up at Shao Qingyuan aggrievedly. Then, she realized that Shao Qingyuan had been turning his head to look out of the window. Outside the window stood an exquisite-looking girl with curved eyes, as well as someone with ashen face and clenched fists, wishing he could beat her to death. Her father. What was going on? Who was this girl? Why was her father here? Yundong looked up and measured the height of the windowsill. She realized that the window of the house was quite big. She immediately stopped walking towards the door and jumped in with her right hand on the windowsill. Before she could land, Shao Qingyuan had already run over and caught her. He frowned and said unhappily, "Why didn't you go through the door? The ground is uneven. Be careful and don't fall over." Gu Yundong smiled. "Don't I have you?" The two of them acted as if no one was around, provoking Qing, who was standing not far away. She widened her eyes and fixed her gaze on Gu Yundong. She wanted to ask who this woman was and why young master was so good to her and so gentle. However, she could not speak because her father, Wang, had already entered from the door and dragged her out, not giving her a chance. Qing was led out of the door. She stared at Gu Yundong in the room indignantly. Zhou was especially perceptive this time. He walked out of the room quickly and even very considerately closed the door of the central room for the two of them. Even the last bit of light was blocked for Qing, and she looked a little unwilling. But Gu Yundong, who was in the house, did not even look at her from the beginning to the end. She did not take her seriously at all. She only had eyes for Shao Qingyuan now. After everyone left, Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but squeeze her hand and ask again, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to see what kind of trouble you're in." The gentleness in Shao Qingyuan's eyes intensified. "You know now." "Yes, I do." Gu Yundong slowly took a deep breath. "It turns out that you've been looking for Bai Muzi all along, and you've memorized Bai Muzi's characteristics and appearance. You're even afraid of mixing it up with other herbs and finding the wrong one, so you remember the herbs that look similar clearly. Did you put in a lot of effort?" Shao Qingyuan looked at her deeply. Indeed, she understood. She had always been so considerate. Shao Qingyuan felt that he could not leave her. He nodded slightly, his voice slightly hoarse. Chapter 709. Gu Yundong's Guilt. Gu Yundong patted her hand and said, "Since you came to look for Bai Muzi, why didn't you tell me the day before yesterday? It's not easy to get Bai Muzi. I'm worried that it's fake news. We have to confirm it first. Otherwise, won't all of you be happy for nothing?" Reality proved that it was indeed fake. Even though he didn't have much hope from the beginning, Shao Qingyuan was still disappointed. Gu Yundong asked him, "Other than this time, how many other times have you heard news about Bai Muzi?" "2 times, I guess." "Unfortunately, neither of them are real." Gu Yundong fell silent for a moment. She did not speak. Shao Qingyuan could not help but pat her back. "What's wrong? There's no need to be disheartened. We'll find it eventually. It's not like there's only one Bai Muzi in the world. We'll find it if we search longer." Gu Yundong sighed and smiled bitterly. "Bai Muzi is clearly what my mother needs. I'm not as focused on that as you." She felt ashamed. It seemed that ever since she brought Madame Yang to see Song Dejiang and confirmed that her life was not in danger, Gu Yundong had been half relieved. Although she was also looking for Bai Muzi, she was no longer in such a hurry. As for Shao Qingyuan, in order to find Bai Muzi, he went deep into the mountains, opened a pharmacy, memorized the medicinal ingredients, and understood the characteristics of similar herbs. As long as there was any news, he would personally go over to confirm it. She actually did not know how much he had done and how much effort he had put in. Compared to him, she did very little. Gu Yundong lowered her head slightly. At that moment, self-reproach and guilt surged. Shao Qingyuan was stunned for a moment before saying, "Aren't you earning money?" Shao Qingyuan pinched her tender cheek and felt the soft touch under his hand. His voice was hoarse as he said in a low voice, "I'm looking for the herbs. Isn't it just right for you to earn money and buy them?" His voice was low and deep, as if he could comfort people. "Bai Muzi is rare and expensive. If you don't work hard to earn more money, what if you can't buy it when you find it later?" That seemed to make sense. Your ability is limited alone. You can't take care of everything. You've already done it very well. Besides, I can't let you do everything. Then why do you still need me? Your fiancé? You have to leave something for me to do." Gu Yundong laughed. When did this person become so good at comforting people? She was really too used to doing everything herself, even though she had a family and a fiancé now. However, she was only one person after all. There were some things that she could hand over to someone close and trusted, right? Gu Yundong suddenly understood. She hugged Shao Qingyuan. "All right, Let's work hard together. You'll be in charge of working hard to earn money. You'll be in charge of finding medicinal herbs and treating my mother. Okay. The woman in his arms was soft. Holding her, Shao Qingyuan felt unprecedented satisfaction. He couldn't bear to let go. Unfortunately, there was a commotion outside the door. Yundong let go of him and rubbed his face twice with a smile until it was red. It's getting late. Let's go back first. Shao Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief and pulled her open the door. The few people standing outside were stunned for a moment and quickly took a few steps forward. Shao Qingyuan and Qin didn't look at the expectant Qin and walked out of village chief Jiao's house first. The Jiao village was very lively. Shao Qingyuan didn't care, and the group walked towards the entrance of the village. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 710. Forgot your identity. Shao Qingyuan helped Gu Yundong into her carriage while Tong Shui Tao rode. As for his original carriage, he handed it to Zhou. As soon as Zhou sat in the shaft of the carriage, he said to Qin, who also wanted to come up, "Walk back yourself." After saying that, he shook the reins and the horse chased after the carriage in front. Qin's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at the carriage that was getting further and further away. She was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She stomped her feet fiercely and said to Wang, who had also been left behind, "Father, look at him. What kind of person is this?" As soon as young master left, he immediately changed his expression and didn't take us seriously. That carriage isn't his. However, Wang suddenly shook off her hand and said, "You're the one who thinks too highly of yourself. Who do you think you are? You're just a servant. What right do you have to sit in master's carriage? Little brother, Zhou has been by master's side for so long, but you've only seen master twice. You didn't even leave a good impression on master. Zhou is already being polite to you." Qin's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at her father, who had scolded her. "Father, what are you talking about? Yes, we're servants. Others look down on us, but we can't look down on ourselves. What's wrong with servants? Are servants not humans? Besides, who said that I didn't leave a good impression on master? I helped master block the danger just now. Master must be touched." It was as if Wang was meeting his daughter for the first time. As expected, they had stayed in the manor for so long that they had forgotten their identity and really thought of themselves as the master of the manor. He raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. Qin only felt a burning pain on her face, and her expression was filled with shock. "Father, you hit me?" "Yes, I'm waking you up. You're trying to get close to master, even though you know he has a fiancée. That's shameless." Wang sneered. "Master is touched? I didn't see that at all. Do you think that it was something to protect your master? Let me tell you, it was completely unnecessary. If you hadn't been his front, he would have kicked Dr. Liu away. I saw everything outside of the window. Master was not touched, only annoyed." "No way." Wang felt extremely tired and blamed himself for not teaching his daughter well. Just as he was about to say something, he heard a soft click. Wang was stunned and looked up. He saw Jiao Lao-san walking out from a corner with an awkward smile on his face. It seemed like he had been standing there for a while and had probably heard a lot of things. No matter how much Wang wanted to educate his daughter, he could not do it in front of outsiders. He smiled at Jiao Lao-san and dragged Qin away. Jiao Lao-san rubbed his nose and watched as the father and daughter walked further and further away. Then, he punched the wall in frustration. It turned out that he was the one who was really insensitive. He had almost done something bad out of good intentions. Wang brought Qin to the manor in a hurry. The Jiao village was not far from the manor, but it still took them a lot of time on their two legs. When the two of them arrived outside the manor, Wang saw Madame Wan standing at the entrance with a worried and resentful expression. Wang had a bad feeling. He quickly took a few steps forward and asked, "Why are you standing here?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know or report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 711. Something big happened when Madame once saw him coming over. She quickly took 2 steps forward and said, "Why are you only back now? Let me tell you, something big has happened." "What is it?" Shui Zongwang's heart skipped a beat. Madame Wan did not notice his expression. She only pointed in the direction of the orchard and said, "2 people actually came to steal herbs in broad daylight and were caught. However, they killed Big Black. Master and Miss are interrogating them now." "They killed Big Black." Shui Zongwang's face instantly darkened. Although Big Black was not raised by him, he had watched it grow up. That dog looked fierce, but was very protective of its master. He did not expect it to be killed by 2 thieves. He could not care less about his legs that were a little weak from rushing. He wiped his sweat and turned to walk towards the orchard. Unexpectedly, he had only taken a step when he heard Madame Wan's noisy voice behind him. "Qiner, what's wrong with your face? Who beat you up? Mother will avenge you." Just now, Madame Wan only saw her husband and daughter return. With something on her mind, she did not pay attention to Shui Qin. It was only then that he realized that Shui Qin had been covering her face. Once she let go, the clear 5-finger mark on her face was simply terrifying. Madame Wan was furious on the spot. Shui Qin looked at Shui Zongwang with some complaints, which reminded Shui Zongwang of what the mother and daughter had done. He immediately said, impolitely, "I did." Madame Wan was shocked, but when she saw Shui Zongwang's fierce expression, she was a little afraid. Shui Zongwang snorted coldly. "Bring her back and boil an egg for her face. Then lock her in the room and don't let her out. At least, keep her in the room until Master leaves." "Father." Shui Zongwang ignored her and warned Madame Wan, "You'd better listen to me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude and chasing you and your daughter out." Madame Wan wanted to retort, but she didn't dare to. She hurriedly nodded. I understand. As she spoke, she went over to pull Shui Qin. Ignoring her dissatisfaction, she forcefully brought her into the manor. Only then did Shui Zongwang turn around and run in the direction of the orchard. Before she could walk in, she heard a commotion and vaguely heard Yuan Cheng's suppressed cries. Shui Zongwang's heart ached as he quickened his pace. Indeed, there were many people standing in the middle of the herb orchard surrounded by fruit trees. Other than Shao Qingyuan, Yundong, and the others, there were also many tenants who looked murderous. There were 2 people lying on the ground in the middle. Their bodies were firmly tied with ropes. It seemed that they were the 2 thieves.